Chapter 230. Shin Yu was protected in the man's arms and could feel the man's anger. Is this what you meant when you said that you had solved the problem in the clan and that no one would harm you? Shang Junlin's tone was cold and filled with killing intent. It's my negligence. Ji Wuwang sighed. I will give you an explanation. The commotion inside alerted the people outside. Not long after, the Ji clan's guards rushed in and took over the child who wanted to assassinate Shin Yu from Ji Wuwang's sword. Shin Yu then realized that the child was holding a sharp dagger in his hand. The dagger glowed blue under the sunlight. It must have been coated with poison. Shang Junlin also noticed this, and his voice became colder. You should give us an explanation. Why did he encounter an assassination attempt in the sacred ground, which was said to be the safest place in the world? Who arranged this behind the scenes? How did this child manage to escape the layers of guards and hide in the sacred ground? What was his identity? Countless questions lingered in his mind. The most important question was, other than this child, was there anyone else who wanted to harm Shin Yu? There can't be any mistakes in the process of removing the seal. During this period of time, I will carefully investigate the situation in the clan again. Ji Wuwang's expression was also very ugly. Before he left for Dahuan City, he had already cleaned the entire Ji clan. He didn't expect that there would still be a fish that escaped the net. Shin Yu sized up the child who was being restrained by the guards. He was very sure that after he came to the Ji clan, he didn't make any enemies. Then, this hatred could have been passed down from his mother's generation. Why do you want to kill me? Shin Yu looked into the child's eyes and asked. The child said something softly, but Shin Yu didn't hear it clearly. After that, he pursed his lips and didn't say anything else. Shin Yu believed that Ji Wuwang would give him a satisfactory explanation and wouldn't waste any more time on this child. Shang Junlin was in Shun Yu's embrace. His body was tense, and he was in a highly defensive position. The hidden dragon guards surrounded the two of them. I want to participate in the entire process. When Shang Junlin spoke, his cold gaze fell on the child. His meaning was self-evident. An elder beside Ji Wuwang who had rushed over upon hearing the news subconsciously refused. This is the Ji family's matter, you? Sure. Without waiting for him to finish, Ji Wuwang agreed. This matter involved Shun Yu, which was equivalent to touching Shang Junlin's reverse scale. Ji Wuwang knew that it was unrealistic to not let Shang Junlin participate. The elder still wanted to say something, but when he saw Ji Wuwang's stern expression, he silently swallowed his words. Their family head, when it came to matters related to his younger brother, would not listen to the advice of others. Moreover, they were indeed in the wrong this time. Shang Junlin brought Shin Yu back first, while Ji Wuwang led his men to detain the child. Along the way, Shang Junlin did not say anything. Shin Yu held Shang Junlin's hand and scratched his palm. Your Majesty, are you still angry? Shang Junlin held his hand tightly. I'm angry that I didn't discover the danger in advance. How can this kind of thing be predicted in advance? Aren't I fine now? Your Majesty, don't think too much. With Your Majesty around, you won't let anyone hurt me, right? Yes, as long as I'm around, I won't allow anyone to hurt you in any way. After returning to the courtyard where they were temporarily staying, Shang Junlin went to Ji Wuwang's place to deal with the assassination. He would not let anyone who dared to harm Shin Yu off easily. Ji Wuwang's men immediately went to investigate. There were not many people who could get close to the sacred grounds, so the scope of the investigation was narrowed down. Moreover, Ji Wuwang was not completely clueless. Shin Yu did not go. He stayed in the house to recuperate. With Shang Junlin and Ji Wuwang's men guarding outside the house, the degree of danger was minimized. However, it was not completely free of danger. A maid walked over with snacks. Shin Yu glanced at her face. It was a face that he had never seen before. Shin Yu loved all kinds of snacks. Since Ji Wuwang brought him back, he would definitely treat him well. Every day, he would take turns making snacks and have a designated maid deliver them to him. Shin Yu remembered the maid's appearance. She was not the same person who appeared today. He calmly retracted his gaze. This maid was able to get close to him, which meant that the hidden dragon guards and Ji Wuwang did not find anything wrong with her. However, this did not mean that there was nothing wrong with the maid. It was always right to be careful. You don't have to bring it over. Just leave it over there. Xinyu pointed to the table on the other side. Yes. The maid stopped in her tracks and was about to turn around. In the blink of an eye, the maid twisted her body strangely and pounced towards Xinyu. Xinyu dodged to the side and reached out to grab the maid's arm. A silver light flashed between the maid's fingers. Xinyu narrowed his eyes and saw that it was a long needle. He did not know where the maid had hidden it. Bang! The hidden dragon guards heard the commotion and broke through the window. They quickly restrained the maid and separated Xinyu from the danger. I am late. Please forgive me. The leader of the hidden dragon guards knelt on the ground. Xinyu nodded. Ask her who sent her and if she has any accomplices. Xinyu had encountered 2 assassination attempts in one day. However, his expression did not change at all. The hidden dragon guards sighed in their hearts. He was indeed someone who could win the emperor's heart. However, how many people could be so fearless in the face of danger? The hidden dragon guards escorted the maid out. You don't have to take her away. Just ask her here. I also want to know who is the one who tried to kill me time and time again. Xinyu stopped the hidden dragon guards from leaving. His voice was not loud, but it was powerful. At that moment, the hidden dragon guards suddenly felt that the person standing in front of them was not the quiet emperor, but the powerful emperor. The hidden dragon guards escorted the maid to Xinyu. Xinyu lowered his head and looked at her. Today, I encountered an assassination attempt in the sacred grounds. The person who tried to assassinate me was a child who was about 10 years old. What is your relationship with him? The maid lowered her head and did not speak. It's fine if you don't want to tell me. Actually, I am quite curious about the use of this needle. What do you think if I use it on the child? No. The maid raised her head. This has nothing to do with him. But it is a fact that he hid in the sacred grounds and tried to assassinate me. Now, he has been taken away by your leader. If you tell me now, you might be able to save his life. What? The maid panicked. What did you do to him? At that moment, Shang Junlin and Ji Wuwang walked in with their men. They rushed over when they heard the news. When they saw that Xinyu was standing in the room, they heaved a sigh of relief. Shang Junlin walked towards Xinyu. Without saying a word, he pulled him into his arms and said, I shouldn't have left you alone. How long had he left? Something happened again. I'm fine. Xinyu patted the man's back to comfort him. I'm really fine. Don't worry. On the way here, Shang Junlin and Ji Wuwang had already understood the general situation. When they looked at the maid, their eyes were very unfriendly. The person in charge of the arrangement of the maids was called in and asked what had happened. The person in charge endured the pressure and revealed the maid's origin. There was indeed no problem with the maid's identity. It was just that something had happened to the maid who was responsible for delivering snacks to Xinyu today. This matter was handed over to this maid. The person in charge would never have thought that the accident was caused by someone. This maid had taken over this task with a purpose from the beginning. Ji Wuwang's actions were very fast. It did not take long for him to find out the cause and effect of this matter. The Ji family had undergone several major purges under his control. It was very easy for him to find out some things. In the courtyard, Xinyu, Shang Junlin, and Ji Wuwang sat in front of a stone table. Xinyu asked, that is to say, this matter was left behind by history? Yes. The clan leader who was stopped by your mother was very powerful in the family. Other than those who followed him, I spent many years to remove the remaining forces one by one. But I did not expect that even so, there were still people who secretly wanted to avenge him. Ji Wuwang said, this is normal. He has been in the Ji family for so many years. There are people who are dissatisfied with his actions, but there are also people who support his actions. Shang Junlin said coldly, what about the child's identity? Have you found out? Xinyu asked. His mother was a maid who served the clan leader. She was quite useful. When that person left, he promised the maid that he would marry her when he returned. She believed him, but only received news of that person's death. Coupled with the fact that I had purged the clan's power on a large scale back then, she submitted herself to a wealthy merchant. After giving birth to the child, she has been instilling in the child the thought of avenging that person. Ji Wuwang replied, using her own child as a tool for revenge. Xinyu did not comment on this practice. Did she not think that she was deceived? That person left a small number of people for her. Because of this, she believed that she was not abandoned. This matter can help me eliminate the last batch of forces left behind by that person. It was impossible for a child to enter the heavily guarded Holy Land without anyone's help. Ji Wuwang could use this opportunity to wipe out all the hidden forces in one fell swoop. What about the maid who came to assassinate me alone? She seems to value that child very much. Shen Yu held Shang Junlin's hand in his hand and pinched it from time to time. Shang Junlin indulged his actions. When he heard about the maid who almost hurt Shen Yu, his doting expression instantly turned cold. Before she came on duty, she was responsible for taking care of the child. Moreover, they seem to think that the child is their clan leader's child. Whether this matter is true or not is not important. Ji Wuwang had been dealing with these people for a long time. He knew that it was difficult to change their minds. However, he did not intend to change their minds. He could just directly catch them and deal with them. Why waste his breath? In the next few days, there may be some turmoil in the clan's land. I will arrange for people to guard here and not let anyone disturb us. Shang Junlin did not care about the internal affairs of the Ji family. However, if it involved Shen Yu, Shang Junlin would definitely care. He reminded Ji Wuwang, "Don't forget what you promised me. I will leave them for you. You can deal with them however you want." Ji Wuwang nodded. He was referring to the two people who tried to assassinate Shen Yu. Time passed day by day. Shen Yu did not feel anything. However, he clearly felt that Shang Junlin was getting more and more uneasy. He did not know what the man was uneasy about. Whenever he asked during the day, Shang Junlin would change the topic. Once again, Shen Yu felt someone's gaze on his face in the middle of the night. He resisted the sleepiness and opened his eyes. Shang Junlin did not expect him to suddenly wake up. He was obviously startled. Shen Yu raised his hand and touched Shang Junlin's face. "Your Majesty, what are you afraid of?" Chapter 231. I didn't. Shang Junlin subconsciously retorted. Shen Yu frowned. "Your Majesty, you can't fool me." Shang Junlin was silent. Of course, he knew that he couldn't fool Shen Yu with his condition, but how could he say it? Could he say that it was because he had a dream and he was afraid of losing Shen Yu? His thoughts drifted back to a few days ago. In his dream, Shang Junlin saw Shen Yu slowly closing his eyes as his vitality dried up. It was like a magic spell. Even though he woke up and knew that it was fake, Shang Junlin couldn't help but think about it again and again. What if one day the things in the dream become reality? Shang Junlin didn't dare to think about his reaction if it happened. He knew that he couldn't bear such an outcome. After waking up that night, he opened his eyes and looked at Shen Yu for the entire night. It was as if he couldn't get enough of it. He didn't dare to close his eyes. He was afraid that if he closed his eyes, the scene in his dream would appear in his mind. In addition, the day when Shen Yu would remove the seal was approaching. Although he repeatedly confirmed that there wouldn't be any danger, he still couldn't feel at ease. In the dim candlelight, Shen Yu stared at Shang Junlin's eyes. He saw struggle, pain, uneasiness. He saw all kinds of emotions in Shang Junlin's eyes. In the end, these emotions were suppressed by their master and could no longer be seen. "If there's anything, Your Majesty can tell me. Don't keep it in your heart," Shen Yu said in a soft tone, as if he was coaxing Shang Junlin. "Your Majesty, you can tell me. I don't want Your Majesty to fall again when I get better. What I want is a healthy Your Majesty who can walk down the path with me." Shang Junlin hugged Shen Yu even tighter. Their bodies were tightly pressed together. Their body heat was transmitted to each other through their thin clothes. Gradually, they became indistinguishable. Jean had a nightmare. Shang Junlin pressed Shen Yu's head on his shoulder, not letting him see his face. In the dream, there was only a Yu. There was no Jean. In the end, a Yu was also gone. His Majesty also said that this is just a nightmare. Shen Yu gently patted Shang Junlin's back and gently comforted him. "Dreams can't be taken as reality. I'm here, in His Majesty's arms, and I will never leave." "I know. I'm just a little scared. I can't lose you." Shang Junlin lowered his head and kissed Shen Yu's face. "A Yu, I love you very much." Shen Yu lay quietly in Shang Junlin's arms, letting him do whatever he wanted. "His Majesty won't lose me. I also like His Majesty very much. I like His Majesty more than anything else. His Majesty has already provoked me and taken root in my heart. Even if one day you want to regret it, I won't allow it. This was the first time Shin Yu showed possessiveness towards Shang Junlin. Not only did it not make the Emperor of Dahuan dissatisfied, but it also soothed the uneasiness in his heart. He rubbed the young man in his arms, and his voice was filled with excitement. Jin won't regret it. You can't regret it either. Yu's heart towards Jean. Jean will never let you down. You can't let Jin down either, no matter what. Shin Yu raised his head and found the position of Shang Junlin's lips. He took the initiative to kiss them. Okay, it's a promise. After an open and honest conversation, Shang Junlin's condition seemed to be better. Shin Yu could roughly guess that the man's uneasiness came from his own body. After getting rid of the warning in his body, he would have plenty of time to calm Shang Junlin's heart. Ji Wuwang's purge was very fast. After a few days, the Ji clan quietly lost some people. These people didn't have a strong sense of presence, so even if they suddenly disappeared, no one would notice anything wrong. Shang Junlin would occasionally go out to discuss matters with Ji Wuwang. Shin Yu didn't participate, so he didn't know what they talked about in private. His daily life was very simple. As he couldn't think too much, many things were directly handled by Shang Junlin and Ji Wuwang. They didn't come to him. After the assassination that day, the people serving him changed. Shin Yu could feel from the words and actions of some of the servants that they weren't simple servants. Shin Yu's side was protected by the hidden dragon guards and Ji Wuwang's men. The previous incident had left a shadow in their hearts. They definitely wouldn't allow something similar to happen again. Imperial Physician Gu continued to take Shun Yu's pulse once a day. Then, he would discuss with the person in charge of removing the warning in the Ji clan how to minimize the harm to Shen Yu's body. The Ji clan's library had a lot of unique medical books. As the imperial physician in charge of nursing Shen Yu's body, he could borrow these books. During this period of time, Imperial Physician Gu had absorbed a lot of knowledge. This situation is very special. Although the warning will absorb the vitality in the body, to a certain extent, the existence of the warning also protects young Master Shen Yu's body. If it wasn't for the existence of the warning, his illness would be more serious than it is now, a member of the Ji clan said. Imperial Physician Gu was having a discussion with the person in charge of removing the warning in the hall. During this period of time, he had a better understanding of the warning. He knew that before Shen Yu, the warning would be removed from the saint's body when her vitality was about to be sucked dry. Then, it would be implanted into the body of the next saint, and the cycle would repeat. When the warning was removed, the saint would lose her value and would die in a short period of time. However, it was different this time. What they had to do was to protect Shen Yu. The method discussed before can be used, but there are still some shortcomings. If we can find a way to improve it, we can make it so that it won't cause any damage to the host. The fruit of the moon lotus is about to ripen. We have to hurry. Imperial Physician Gu also joined the discussion. In the beginning, he didn't have much authority among these people. However, after he quickly absorbed the knowledge related to the warning, his suggestions became more and more targeted. After solving several difficult problems, he completely integrated into the discussion and knew more and more inside information. He would report everything he knew to Shang Junlin. If the situation didn't allow it, Shang Junlin would have personally watched these people. After discussing with Ji Wuwang, Shang Junlin returned. When he stepped into the courtyard, he saw a young man sitting in the corridor reading a book. The young man was wearing a green robe. When he heard the footsteps, he put down his book and looked up. "Your Majesty, you're back?" Shang Junlin walked over and picked him up. "Did you miss me? How long has your Majesty been away?" Shun Yu raised his eyebrows. "Even if I was away for a quarter of an hour, I was still thinking about you all the time." Shang Junlin sniffed Shun Yu's unique scent and gradually calmed down. The Ji clan was isolated from the rest of the world and almost couldn't feel the various disturbances in the outside world. In the palace, Fang Jun finished dealing with the matters at hand. A servant quietly pushed open the door and entered. "Sir, a secret letter from the capital." Fang Jun took the letter. After reading it, he placed the letter on a candle and lit it. Some people couldn't sit still anymore. The capital. Everything seemed to be the same as when Shang Junlin was here. However, those who were sensitive could faintly feel that a huge wave was brewing under the calm surface. Duan Darren was preparing to leave as usual when an uninvited guest appeared in the residence. "Sir, have you thought about it?" In the study, a man in gray sat opposite Duan Darren. He took out a brocade box from his sleeve. "This is a meeting gift from my master. I hope you like it. I'm now in the cabinet. Why do you think I can agree to your request? I believe you know the price of betraying His Majesty." Duan Darren didn't even look at the brocade box. "Sir, it's true that you're a cabinet minister. It's also because of this reason that you know better than anyone else about His Majesty's attitude towards the aristocratic families. His Majesty is suppressing the aristocratic families everywhere. Do you want to watch the aristocratic families fall step by step?" The man in gray's tone didn't change. Duan Darren was silent. After a long while, he compromised. "What do you want me to do?" The man in gray smiled. "Sir, you don't have to be nervous. You just need to delay the Prime Minister. As for what to do, when the time comes, someone will inform you. After the matter is done, my master will give you what you want as promised. Almost everyone in the capital is His Majesty's people. Even if he's not here now, what can you do?" Duan Darren seemed puzzled. "Sir, you'll know when the time comes. If you're not willing to say anything, how can I believe you?" Duan Darren played with the cup in his hand. "I'm a first-rank minister after all. It doesn't seem like I need to take such a big risk. You entered the Duan residence alone. Aren't you afraid that I'll take credit for it?" The man in gray's expression changed slightly. Why did he dare to come alone? It was Duan Darren who revealed the information of cooperation. "Sir, your considerations are reasonable. Since you're already one of us, there's no harm in telling you in advance. We have people in the Imperial Army. When the time comes, we'll directly take control of the palace." Duan Darren's expression didn't change. "I see. I understand. Without King Yu, who do you plan to support this time?" "The 17th prince has just come of age. He's the most intelligent and obedient child. What do you think, sir?" The 17th prince, Shang Junlin, wasn't even 10 years old when he ascended the throne. Because of his young age, he didn't have time to do anything. Duan Darren thought for a long time before he could barely recall this person's figure from his memory. It had to be said that compared to Shang Junlin, the other prince's presence was too weak. "How confident are you that you can pull His Majesty down from the throne?" "Duan Darren, do you know why the previous emperor hated the only legitimate prince so much?" There were many guesses in the imperial court regarding this reason, but none of them were verified. When the previous emperor was at his most absurd, he killed many people because of this matter. This matter had almost become a taboo that couldn't be touched. Now, many years after the previous emperor's death, it was brought up again. The man in gray left. Duan Darren sat in the same place for a long time without moving. After a long time, he stood up and wrote a letter. He sealed it with a special method. The weather in the capital was getting hotter and hotter. Xinyu didn't feel that hot in the Ji clan's territory. The temperature here was just right. It really felt like he was in a palace somewhere to avoid the summer heat. After much anticipation, the fruit of the moon lotus ripened. The ripened fruit was plucked and preserved with a special method. As the time to remove this seal approached, Shang Junlin and Ji Wuwang began to feel nervous. On the contrary, Xinyu, as the person involved, was relatively calm. Xinyu grabbed the sleeves of the man who was walking back and forth in front of him. He said helplessly, "Your Majesty, if you continue walking, I'll be dizzy." With his sleeves caught, the man had no choice but to stop. He turned around and held Xinyu's hand in his palm. "I've never been so nervous before. Didn't Imperial Physician Gu say that the risk has been minimized?" Looking at Shang Junlin's appearance, Xinyu felt that even if he wanted to be nervous, he couldn't. He spent all his time comforting Shang Junlin. Chapter 232. I know, it's just that. He couldn't control himself. Shang Junlin didn't expect that there would be such a day. In the past, he felt that he wasn't afraid of anything and wasn't nervous at all. Now, he realized that it was just that he hadn't met someone who could make him feel afraid and nervous. Shin Yu walked over and hugged Shang Junlin from behind. He rested his head on Shang Junlin's shoulder and said, "Your Majesty, don't worry. Imperial Physician Gu is also here. Your Majesty should believe his words." Allowing Imperial Physician Gu to join them was a safeguard made by Shang Junlin. Imperial Physician Gu was very familiar with Shan Yu's physical condition. If the Ji family wanted to do something, they wouldn't be completely passive. Imperial Physician Gu would report what he saw and heard to Shang Junlin. After listening, Shang Junlin would tell Shen Yu that the two of them were quite familiar with the situation. "Come to me. I want to hug you," Shang Junlin said in a low voice. Shen Yu let go of his hand. Before he could move, Shang Junlin had already turned around and hugged him. Imperial Physician Gu told me that they improved the method several times and finally chose the one that had the least impact on your body. However, after removing the restraining guidance, there will be no external force to suppress your original deficiency. You may need to recuperate for a period of time. Shin Yu heard about this from Ji Wuwang. The elders of the Ji family who removed the restraining guidance discussed for a long time. The most important part was how to prevent his congenital deficiency from worsening after the restraining guidance was removed. In order to solve this problem, all the books in the Ji family's library were open to Imperial Physician Gu. In the end, Imperial Physician Gu found a way. After confirming the final steps, the time was set. The time was set to be 2 days later. These 2 days were used to make the final preparations. Shang Junlin stayed by Shen Yu's side all day. Even if he had something to do, he would definitely bring Shen Yu along. While they were dealing with the news from the outside world, Shen Yu was held in Shang Junlin's arms as they watched the video together. The letter was sent by Feng Jun. In addition to the movements in the temporary imperial residence, it also mentioned the movements in the capital. What was different this time was that there was a special secret letter in the letter. It seems that they really can't sit still this time. The 17th prince secretly went to the capital? Shen Yu rummaged through his memory, but couldn't find any information about this prince. After Shang Junlin ascended the throne, the 17th prince went to his fief with a few other princes who didn't have much of a presence. He had been well behaved all these years and didn't cause any commotion. Many princes were affected when the bloodline of the previous emperor was mixed up, but he wasn't. Without the king of Yu, there is the 17th prince. Why didn't he take that seat himself? Shin Yu looked at the secret letter and couldn't figure it out. He thought that he would be able to fish out the mastermind directly, but he didn't expect it to be another puppet. Shang Junlin leaned close to Shen Yu's face and said, "This time, I won't let him have a chance to escape unscathed." The meaning behind her gentle tone was enough to make one shudder. They all knew that it was impossible for the 17th prince to do these things. There must be someone behind him. Their purpose this time was to find out who this person was and get rid of him. Gu Huai has found the batch of armor left by the Lin family. Shang Junlin changed the topic. How is General Gu now? Shin Yu didn't think that the mastermind would let Gu Huai get the armor unscathed. They were ambushed, but the ambushers were the remaining soldiers of the Lin family. They have been absorbed by Gu Huai. The two sides are now pretending to fight fiercely. They did this to confuse the enemy's eyes and ears. After Gu Huai led his men into the cave, they saw the missing armor of the Lin family. They didn't take the armor out immediately. Instead, they left empty-handed after checking it out. There were not only armors, but also other military supplies. There were several boxes full of weapons, but Gu Huai didn't let his men touch them. These things had been here for a long time, but no one took them away. It was as if they were waiting for them to come and take them. Gu Huai knew that things weren't that simple. He led his men out of the cave. They hadn't gone far when they were ambushed. The ambushers didn't have many people, but their fighting power was very strong. The two sides fought fiercely. At the critical moment, the leader of the other side saw the commander's seal in Gu Huai's hand. "Stop." With the leader's order, the other side's people immediately stopped. Gu Huai also had his own people stop. The short confrontation made the two leaders understand that the two sides were evenly matched. If they continued to fight, both sides would suffer. The leader looked at the young general in front of him with a complicated expression. He asked in a hoarse voice, "Where did you get this commander's seal?" Gu Huai rubbed the commander's seal in his hand. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, but he didn't show them on his face. Naturally, it was given by His Majesty. Shang Junlin? How dare you call His Majesty by his name? The soldiers standing behind Gu Huai subconsciously pointed their wooden cannons at the other side. The leader's men didn't pass on the responsibility and took an attacking stance. The atmosphere between the two sides was tense again. The leader waved his hand and signaled for the people behind him to relax. It seems that you have a lot of faith in the current emperor of the Great Huan Kingdom. Who are you? Gu Huai looked at the other side with a sharp gaze. I want to talk to you alone. No, who knows what you're thinking? Gu Huai's deputy was the first to disagree. General, you have to be careful of this person. Gu Huai was silent for a moment before he said, All right. The two generals led him to the side. The rest of the people looked at each other in confusion. They didn't know how things had suddenly turned out this way. In another secluded place, the leader stood opposite Gu Huai. He carefully sized up the young general in front of him. I heard that you used your own merits to reverse the Lin family's confession. Why? I just feel that the Lin family shouldn't bear such a crime. You still have the Lin family army seal in your hands. We should listen to your orders, but the Lin family army no longer exists. You're from the Lin family army? Gu Huai interrupted him. Yes. The leader didn't deny it. When the Lin family was in trouble, the previous emperor wanted to hand over the Lin family army to someone else. I knew that there was something wrong with the destruction of the Lin family, so I quietly left with the brothers who were willing to follow me. As expected, many people in the Lin family army who questioned the Lin family's case quietly disappeared. Until now, there was no Lin family army in the world. Their loyal souls had passed away, but the injustice they suffered was only pacified decades later. If they hadn't recognized Gu Huai as the person to reverse the verdict for the Lin family, based on what he had done, the leader wouldn't have let them off. The things left behind by the Lin family are things that you have been guarding all this time? Gu Huai thought of the neatly arranged military supplies and asked, Yes, these things belong to the Lin family. Other than the Lin family, no one has the right to possess them. Since you reversed the verdict for the Lin family, you can take some of them if you want, the leader said. When you were here, did you meet other people who wanted to take these things away? Gu Huai didn't follow his words. Instead, he asked another question. The leader, Yes. The reason why we attacked you in the beginning was because we thought you were those people. Gu Huai, regarding the Lin family, you also feel that there is something strange about it. I want to find out who wanted to harm the Lin family. Perhaps it has something to do with these people who often come here. The leader, What you say makes sense. What do you want me to do? Gu Huai whispered a few words. The leader nodded. I understand. After the two returned, the two forces confronted each other and neither side gave in. The news here reached the ears of some people. After the subordinate reported it, he knelt on the ground and asked, Master, do we continue to wait? Wait until both sides are injured, then we will act? Yes. How is the 17th prince? He has already moved according to the master's orders. What about the capital? We have already persuaded Master Duan. Many aristocratic families and ministers are also willing to stand on our side. Very good. A carriage was heading to the capital in a low-key manner. Inside the carriage sat a 17 or 18-year-old boy. Beside him was a beardless man with a pale face. Do you think we can really succeed? The boy opened the carriage curtain and asked, With the help of that master, of course we will succeed. Your Highness, don't worry. Just do as he says. I have a feeling that it won't be so easy to succeed, the boy muttered. He had once seen his imperial brother from afar. That was the appearance of a real monarch. He felt that he could defeat him. In that kind of environment, he was able to kill his way out. Why did these people think that they could easily seize the throne from him? He couldn't understand. He also had no choice. Everything in the capital was still in order. The people lived and worked in peace. They didn't know that under the calm surface, there was a turbulent undercurrent. The weather this year is really hot. Fortunately, there is cheap ice for sale. Otherwise, I don't know how to spend the summer. It's all thanks to His Majesty and Gue Jun. I heard that the method to make ice was proposed by Gue Jun. Gue Jun really did a lot of things. I have a friend who just came back from Lin County. Weren't the consequences of the flood this year serious? Yes, because of the newly built water conservancy. Then you must not know that the newly built water conservancy is also related to Guejun. Is this true? Why would I lie to you? My friend was lucky enough to do something for the officials in Lin County. He heard it from there. How can it be false? Although Xinyu didn't publicize the method to control the flood that he gave Shangjunlin, the officials in charge of the flood in Lin County still knew the truth. Therefore, they had a good impression of Xinyu. One after another, the ministers also heard about this. They gathered together in private to discuss this matter. Have you heard the rumors among the people? About Guejun? Is this true? It should be credible. Didn't you notice that the Prime Minister and official Fong think highly of Guejun? Everyone knows the Prime Minister's character. He can't treat someone differently just because His Majesty favors him. That's right. So this is very likely true, and the Prime Minister knows the truth? If it's true, why didn't His Majesty announce it? This is a great contribution. Even if Guejun is a member of the harem, he can't not reward him. Why don't we send a memorial to ask? If it's true, we should reward him based on his contribution. If it's not, we should clarify it to the public. After the officials discussed it, they all felt that it was necessary to send a memorial to ask. Xinyu didn't know that the news about him giving the method to control the flood had started to spread among the people. Many officials knew about it and planned to ask Shang Junlin for confirmation. There was only one day left. Shang Junlin put down everything and stayed by Shun Yu's side. Wherever Shun Yu went, he followed him like a big dog. After breakfast, Imperial Physician Gu came to check Shan Yu's pulse. Shang Junlin sat beside Shen Yu and held his other hand. How is it? Shang Junlin asked when Imperial Physician Gu put down his hand. Guejuan's body is recovering well. Don't worry, Your Majesty. His insufficiency. Your subject has something to discuss with Your Majesty and Your Highness. It's about Your Highness's health. Your subject has been reading the Ji family's books these days and has thought of a method that can greatly cure Your Highness's deficiency. Does Your Highness still remember the Junling that your subject sent into the palace? The Junling can be used as medicine. After it blossoms, using the flower of the Junling and a few medicines that are unique to the Ji family, it can minimize the effects of the deficiency on Your Highness's body. In addition to removing the Jiayin, Imperial Physician Gu was also looking for a way to solve another hidden danger of Shan Yu's body. Even if Guejuan's insufficiency was well taken care of, it would more or less affect his lifespan. Fortunately, the Ji family had a rich collection of books. He really found a way to cure Shan Yu's illness. Is this true? Shang Junlin couldn't hide his excitement. This was undoubtedly the best news he had heard. Shang Junlin had already decided that after removing the Jiayin and bringing Xinyu back to the palace, he would ask the Imperial Physician Hospital to work together to cure Shan Yu's insufficiency. If the Imperial Physician Hospital couldn't do it, he would look for a doctor among the common people. No matter the cost, he would treat Xin Yu's insufficiency. I don't dare to say anything rash. However, the treatment might take a long time. I will adjust the prescription according to Guejuan's specific condition. Imperial Physician Gu rambled on about the treatment. Imperial Physician Gu, just tell me what you want. As long as you can cure you, I'll satisfy any request. It's my duty to save the dying and heal the injured. Your Majesty doesn't have to do this. Moreover, I'm indebted to Guejun. I'll do my best to cure Guejun. Xinyu thought that removing the Jiayin was the best situation. He didn't expect Imperial Physician Gu to give him such a big surprise. Who didn't want to have a healthy body? He had been tortured by illness for 2 lifetimes. In this life, he wanted to accompany His Majesty for a longer period of time. With Imperial Physician Gu's promise, he suddenly felt relieved. When we return, I'll reward Imperial Physician Gu. Shang Junlin hugged Xinyu tightly. Imperial Physician Gu's words made him feel relieved. Nothing could make him happier than this news. Xinyu nodded in the man's arms. Because of what happened in his previous life, he saved Imperial Physician Gu from losing his life. Imperial Physician Gu rewarded him with a healthy body. It seemed that everything was predestined. In this life, because he chose to enter the palace and met Shang Junlin, there was a completely different development from his previous life. The next morning, Shen Yu and Shang Junlin were led by the Ji family to the place where Shun Yu's jiayin was removed. It was a palace built in the middle of a mountain. Shen Yu was led by Shang Junlin as they walked in step by step. Ji Wuwang followed beside them. Imperial Physician Gu and the other elders of the Ji family were already waiting. Shang Junlin was stopped in front of the palace. Only Shun Yu could enter. This was what they had agreed on. Shang Junlin stood in place and watched Shun Yu walk into the palace. The palace attendants closed the door. Shen Yu turned around at the last moment before the door was completely closed. "Your Majesty, wait for me." Chapter 233. Shang Junlin subconsciously walked forward. "You can't go over." The attendant blocked his path. Shang Junlin stopped and watched as the door closed bit by bit. Only when the door was completely closed and he could no longer see the person inside did Shang Junlin retract his gaze. "Don't worry, the elders will return you a healthy Xiao Yu." Ji Wuwang patted Shang Junlin's shoulder to comfort him. During this period of time in the Ji clan, Ji Wuwang could feel how important Shen Yu was to Shang Junlin. How much a person loved someone could be seen through their words and actions. Shang Junlin's every action showed how much he cared about Shen Yu. Whether it was subconsciously protecting Shen Yu or how he dealt with those who tried to harm Shen Yu. Those who tried to harm Shun Yu were all handed over to Shang Junlin after Ji Wuwang interrogated them. When Ji Wuwang heard how Shang Junlin dealt with those people, even he couldn't help but shudder. What kind of person Shang Junlin was? From these matters, one could see some clues. The vicious beast was willing to put on shackles just to keep that person. As a relative, he missed too much time to accompany Shen Yu. Now that he found her, she had grown up alone and had also found someone she could spend the rest of her life with. What he missed was ultimately a missed opportunity. He could only do his best to make up for it. The waiting process was always long. Shang Junlin waited outside the door. Halfway through, Ji Wuwang left for a while to deal with some matters. When he returned, the man was still standing in the same place. Even his posture hadn't changed. Dinner was only eaten casually. At this time, whether it was Ji Wuwang or Shang Junlin, neither of them were in the mood to eat. After an unknown period of time, the sky gradually darkened. The tightly closed door was pushed open a small crack. It was over. Shang Junlin and Ji Wuwang entered the hall. The elders were busy dealing with the aftermath. Imperial Physician Gu was bandaging the wounds on Shen Yu's wrist and chest. A young man in a white robe without a speck of dust was lying on the huge stone bed. His eyes were tightly shut, as if he was an immortal who had accidentally fallen into the mortal world and was sleeping here. "Your Majesty." Imperial Physician Gu stood up and bowed. "No need to be so courteous. How is you?" Shang Junlin walked to the side of the stone bed and looked at the young man lying on it. "The prohibition in your body has been successfully removed. All you need to do now is rest well," Imperial Physician Gu replied. "When will little you wake up?" Ji Wuwang asked. "If it's short, he'll wake up tomorrow. If it's long, he'll wake up within 5 days." Shen Yu had a very long dream. When he woke up, everything in the dream had disappeared. He only vaguely remembered that it was a dream that made people feel happy. When he woke up, his body felt indescribably relaxed. The room was quiet. Shen Yu opened his eyes and saw darkness. His wrist and chest hurt a little. He subconsciously wanted to raise his aching wrist to take a look. His hand felt restrained. His movement woke up the man who had fallen into a short sleep. His hand was grasped by a strong hand. The man's slightly hoarse voice sounded, "You is awake?" "Your Majesty? It's me." Shang Junlin stood up and lit the candle. Shen Yu saw that the man's eyebrows were full of fatigue. He couldn't help but ask, "Did I sleep for a long time?" "Not long. Today is the 3rd day." Shang Junlin sat by the bed and stared at Shen Yu as if he couldn't get enough of him. Shen Yu touched his face and saw that his wrist was wrapped in gauze. This was the wound from the treatment. Shen Yu was still conscious at that time. He stared at his wrist for a long time. Shang Junlin thought that he was in pain and gently held his wrist. "Does it hurt?" "A little." "Your Majesty, help me up. It's uncomfortable to lie down for a long time." Shang Junlin supported Shen Yu's back and helped him up. "The wound on your body needs some time to heal." A Yu is finally awake. A gentle kiss fell on his forehead. Shen Yu blinked. His long eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings. The man's gentle kiss gradually moved down and fell on his wings. There was no lust in the kiss. There was only intimacy and joy of regaining what he had lost. Shen Yu leaned on Shang Junlin's chest. The man's heartbeat was steady, just like the feeling he gave Shen Yu. Your Majesty, you waited for me. Shen Yu reached out and touched the man's face. Yes, I waited for you. From now on, I will never let go. Shang Junlin rubbed Shen Yu's hand. He couldn't remember how he waited for the past few days. Every moment, he prayed that Shen Yu would open his eyes. But the young man just slept peacefully. There was no sign of him waking up. Shang Junlin didn't know how many times he had expected and was disappointed. His heart gradually became numb. Halfway through, Imperial Physician Gu came to change Shen Yu's medicine several times. He repeatedly assured that Shen Yu was sleeping to heal himself and would wake up soon. The Ji family's elder who removed Shen Yu's abstinence inducer also said that it was normal. Only then did Shang Junlin calm down. When Shen Yu woke up, the low pressure that lingered around the small courtyard was swept away. After Ji Wuwang received the news, he rushed over with several elders of the Ji family. Little Yu, you finally woke up. If you didn't wake up, I would have suspected that your Majesty was going to tear down the Ji family. Shen Yu smiled. His Majesty wouldn't be so exaggerated. The other members of the Ji family thought. Only you would think so. They didn't doubt that if something happened to Shen Yu and the Ji family might be exterminated by the furious emperor of the Great Huan dynasty. They came to examine Shen Yu. Now that the abstinence inducer had been removed, they needed to see if there were any hidden dangers left behind. After the examination, their expressions relaxed. The leader of the group said, the abstinence inducer in young Master Shen's body has been completely removed. There are no remaining problems. It was more successful than they had imagined. In the following days, Shen Yu stayed in the clan to recuperate. When the wounds on his body were healed, they could go back. In order to stay by Shen Yu's side, Shang Junlin hadn't dealt with the outside world for several days. Shen Yu felt a little helpless when he saw this person staying by his side all day long. Your Majesty, don't you have to deal with the matters in the capital? He hadn't forgotten that before they came here, they had set up a trap for the people outside. A Yu will accompany me. Shang Junlin rubbed his face against Shen Yu's. Shen Yu couldn't drive them away. As long as he agreed with Shang Junlin, he would deal with them together. For the time being, there wasn't any big trouble in the capital. Everything was going according to plan. Fang Jun had found several unknown forces gathering and had sent people to investigate. These people, don't tell me they want to stop us from returning to the capital? Shen Yu looked at the news from the palace and pondered. I brought a small number of people to the palace to avoid the summer heat. Such a good opportunity. If someone really wants to do something, they won't let go of this opportunity. Shang Junlin wasn't surprised. Shen Yu thought about it and agreed. Shang Junlin's initial plan had grasped this point. The truth was just as they thought. The people behind the scenes felt that this was a rare opportunity. Seeing Shang Junlin's reputation among the people was getting better and better, if they didn't take action, it would be more difficult to shake Shang Junlin's rule in the future. He didn't know what was going on with Shang Junlin. Why did his style of doing things suddenly change? No matter what he did, he could firmly grasp the people's hearts. Not to mention, after several major changes in the imperial court, the main officials were all willing to do practical things. Even the officials from the aristocratic families who stayed could contribute to Huan. Thinking about it carefully, all the changes seemed to have started after Shen Yu entered the palace. Shen Yu, you have underestimated the child of Count North, the man sitting on the main seat said. His Majesty is deeply in love with him. This is also our opportunity. If we hurt him or pull him to our side, it will definitely cause a heavy blow to His Majesty. The person sitting below said, that's right. He didn't enter the palace willingly, right? He's the legitimate son of Duke Xinbei. Not only did he fail to ask for the title of Crown Prince, but he was also sent to the harem. As far as I know, this legitimate son of Duke Xinbei is no worse than anyone else. Otherwise, how could he seduce the king of Yu and the emperor to fight for him at the same time and escape unscathed. The king of you, humph, if he wasn't stupid, why would he push the 17th prince out now? Someone was dissatisfied. It's obvious that Shunyu is on the emperor's side. Now that he has the emperor's favor, he can get whatever he wants. Rather than pulling him to our side, it's better to get rid of him directly. The person sitting on the right said, if it was so easy, we would have done it long ago. Now that the emperor is in the palace, we will send people to intercept him. At the same time, we will control the capital. When the 17th prince ascends the throne, we will expose the secret. The world will know who is qualified to sit on the throne. The first confidant who spoke retorted, but wasn't it verified once before? After the incident with Prince Huayu, all the prince's bloodlines were re-verified. The ministers all knew that there was no problem with the emperor's bloodline. Let's talk about this later. How's the situation in the capital? After the argument, the person sitting on the main seat spoke again. Everything is going according to plan. After removing the prohibition, Xinyu ushered in a period of weakness. In addition, he lost too much blood during the process, so his face was very pale for a while. Imperial physician Gu prescribed a prescription for recuperation. Xinyu had to take medicine every day again. This time, the medicine was different from Imperial physician Gu's usual style. It was very bitter. Xinyu only took a sip, but he couldn't stand the bitter taste in his mouth. You didn't take the medicine properly again? Shang Junlin walked in from outside and happened to see Xinyu putting aside the medicine that he had taken a sip of. Xinyu would only complain about such trivial matters in front of Shang Junlin. Why didn't your majesty ask Imperial physician Gu to prescribe some medicine that isn't so hard to swallow? Xinyu felt that he had never drunk medicine that tasted so complicated in his 2 lifetimes. It wasn't just bitter. There were all kinds of strange tastes mixed in with the bitterness. Compared to these strange tastes, Xinyu would rather this medicine was just bitter. I asked Imperial physician Gu. Some herbs are special, so the taste is stronger. After drinking this medicine, it won't taste so bad in the future. I still have to drink it for half a month. Just thinking about it made him feel hopeless. Is it really that bad? Shang Junlin walked to Xinyu's side and picked up the bowl of medicine. Xinyu nodded. Forget it. I'll drink it all in one go. No matter how long it took, he had to drink this medicine. Xinyu took the bowl of medicine from Shang Junlin's hand and drank it all in one go. When he put down the bowl, Shang Junlin had already brought over the candied fruit. Xinyu didn't take it. Instead, he pulled Shang Junlin's collar and pulled him over. Your Majesty, have a taste of how bitter it is. Xinyu licked Shang Junlin's lower lip. How does it taste, Your Majesty? Chapter 234. Shang Junlin pressed the back of Shan Yu's head and deepened the kiss. His nasal voice sounded, "A you is sweet?" Shan Yu used a lot of effort to break free from the man's shackles. He picked up the candied fruit on the side and threw it into his mouth. Then, he kissed her again. Now it's sweet. After hugging and kissing her for a while, Shang Junlin let her go. You, how are you feeling recently? Shang Junlin asked about Shun Yu's health. He asked her personally every day, as if he could only feel at ease when he heard Shun Yu's answer with his own ears. I don't feel uncomfortable anywhere. It would be better if the medicine wasn't so bad. When you're better, we'll go back to the palace. You? Do you want to go back? Shang Junlin pushed the hair on Shan Yu's forehead away from her temples. I'm still used to living in the palace. Is it okay that His Majesty hasn't shown up for so long? How's the situation outside? In order to let Xinyu recuperate in peace, Shang Junlin rarely talked to Xinyu about the outside world. Don't worry. The Prime Minister is in the capital. There won't be any big trouble. Gu Huai has already recognized the Lin family army left behind by the Lin family. They have a common enemy, so they will stand on one side, Shang Junlin said. Has General Gu found out who attacked the Lin family back then? Xinyu asked. The real culprit has already been dealt with. However, there is still a hidden force behind this matter. The abnormality of the Lin family was caused by this force. Gu Huai has some evidence in his hands. This person is the same person who used the medicine in Lin County? Back then, When the Lin family was in trouble, Gu Huai found a clue about Crimson Dream. Not long ago, the epidemic in Lin County was also caused by Crimson Dream. There must be some connection between the two. Gu Huai's hands and feet are tied. By the time he gets rid of those people, the truth will be revealed to the world. Gu Huai was still in a standoff with the Lin army deep in the mountains. Both sides were fighting fiercely, but the real losses were not great. Their movements were reported to the scholars behind them by the spies who had been observing them. A few days later, when both sides had suffered heavy losses, they encountered another army that appeared out of nowhere. Gu Huai and the other party's leader looked at each other and understood that the person they were waiting for had arrived. The people who originally thought they would win joined the battle, but before they could react, they were surrounded by the people brought by Gu Huai and the Lin family army. None of them could escape. After dealing with this group of people, Gu Huai did not leave immediately. Instead, he stayed for a few more days and dealt with the other groups of people one after another. Then, he followed their traces and led his troops to their headquarters. The scholar behind these people did not know what was going on here. His attention was focused on the capital, and he secretly went there. His attention was taken away, so he naturally ignored the reversal on Gu Huai's side. Gu Huai and the other side's momentum of fighting to the death gave him the illusion that the two sides would be in a life-and-death situation under his arrangement. He didn't expect that from the beginning, his judgment was wrong. Hurriedly, the 17th prince arrived at the capital. He was arranged to stay in an inconspicuous house at the edge of the capital. He was surrounded by people who protected and monitored him. On this day, a special guest came to the house. Under the guidance of a servant, Duan Darren met the scholar who he would be loyal to in the future. "Greetings, Your Highness." "Darren, no need to be so courteous." This meeting was a signal. Duan Darren knew that the other party was telling him that it was time to make a move. Everything happened quietly. In a place where no one could see, the power was in turmoil. Fang Jun was not in the court, so the prime minister was in charge of the court. However, as one of the cabinet ministers, Duan Darren's influence in the court was not small. Under the surging undercurrents, the prime minister did not seem to notice anything and continued to do what he was supposed to do every day. As for this, the people in the city did not feel anything. They were busy making a living every day and occasionally discussed the various things that happened in the capital. Recently, the most discussed thing was the opening of the elementary school in the imperial court. This matter had already been put on the agenda. Even though Shang Junlin was not in the court, under the leadership of the prime minister and other ministers, it was still carried out in an orderly manner. Xin Yu's body was recovering well. The Ji family's foundation was medical skills. Any one of the elders was a divine existence outside. With them and Imperial Physician Gu helping Shen Yu recuperate, it was difficult for him not to recover. Shang Junlin was the emperor of Dahuan and could not stay outside for too long. Seeing that Shen Yu's body was getting better day by day, the two discussed leaving. "Xiao Yu, are you really not going to stay?" Ji Wuwang asked again as he sat opposite Shen Yu and Shang Junlin. "No need." Shen Yu shook his head. Not to mention that he had Shang Junlin now, even if he was alone, he would not stay in the Ji family. His mother was indeed a member of the Ji family, but to him, the Ji family was just a group of strangers. So what if they were related by blood? Duke Xinbei was his biological father, so he wouldn't take him seriously. Thinking of Zhenbei Ho, Xinyu remembered the strange expression on his face when he asked Zhenbei Ho about his mother. He asked Ji Wuwang, "Does Zhenbei Ho not know about my mother's identity?" "He should not know," Ji Wuwang replied. The capital was too big, and we did not know her exact whereabouts. We chased to the capital and wanted to capture her, but we did not expect to fall into her trap and suffer heavy losses. Since then, we had no choice but to lie low. When my mother left, did she take many people with her? Shen Yu turned to look at Ji Wuwang. Ji Wuwang immediately understood Shan Yu's unfinished words. He said, "Not many. If there were enough people, we would not have lost track of her." This was very strange. Since she did not take many people with her, it was definitely not enough to deal with the patriarch. Otherwise, she would not have changed her identity. Then who helped his mother? Was it also someone from the imperial family? After confirming that he could not get any more information from these people, Xinyu asked another question. How did you plan to deal with me at that time? Zhu Wang, who had been taught a lesson, was very honest. He confessed everything in one breath. We wanted you to stand on the side of King Yu. You have Jie in your body. Through a special medicine, you will not have any thoughts of betrayal. The biggest doubt in his previous life was solved. There was indeed something fishy about helping King Yu to ascend the throne. Xinyu had already guessed it. Now that his guess was confirmed, he could not help but sigh in his heart. Without waiting for him to do anything, Shang Junlin had already stepped forward and grabbed Zhu Wang's collar. You still want to control you? The man's voice was filled with violence, and the pressure around him was extremely low. The man looked at him as if he was looking at a dead object. Zhu Wang was stared at by the pair of eyes filled with killing intent. He had already experienced the horror of this man. Under extreme fear, he could not say a word. Your Majesty. A white hand covered the man's hand and stopped the man's violence. Shang Junlin let go of his hand and was pulled around by Xinyu. It's okay, Your Majesty. The soft, comforting voice brought the man back to his senses. Shang Junlin glanced at the two of them coldly. This glance made them feel as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. I've told you everything I know. I beg you, please kill me. Zhu Wang crawled on the ground. His voice was filled with unconcealable fear. Kill you? Shang Junlin sneered. Wouldn't that be letting you off too easily? After asking everything that needed to be asked, Xinyu held Shang Junlin's hand and walked out. The man did not say a word along the way. When they returned to the small courtyard, Xinyu shook the man's hand. Your Majesty, are you still angry? How could they treat you like this? Shang Junlin tightened his arms and pulled Xinyu into his embrace. I will make them pay for hurting you. Xinyu leaned against the man's chest. I know that Your Majesty will avenge me. Xinyu would be lying if he said that he was not angry about this matter. However, when he saw that Shang Junlin cared so much about it, he was not so angry. In his previous life, those people had succeeded, but the ending was changed by him. He had always been clear about what he wanted. As for how to deal with those people, Shang Junlin did not tell Xinyu. Xinyu did not ask either. He raised his head, hugged Shang Junlin's neck, and kissed his lips. I'm very lucky to have met Your Majesty. The changes in this life were all caused by Shang Junlin. He would not let anyone destroy all of this. Chapter 235. Shang Junlin held the young man's waist and kissed him back. I should be the one saying that. Shang Junlin knew better than anyone else what changes Shan Yu's arrival had brought to him, and what changes it had brought to De Huan. The two of them cuddled for a while before Shang Junlin hugged the young man and sat on the bed. We can start to close the net in the capital. The mastermind hasn't shown himself yet. Xinyu found a comfortable position in the man's arms. He has been hiding in the dark. If he isn't sure, he won't show himself. Does Your Majesty know who he is? He has been active in the imperial court since the reign of the late emperor. His influence is not small. There are only a few people in De Huan who have the ability to do so many things. It was true. After Shang Junlin ascended the throne, he punished many officials who had committed crimes during the reign of the late emperor. Until now, the imperial court had changed a lot. Those who were active during the reign of the late emperor were few and far between. Your Majesty, do you think it was a coincidence that Prince An sent the moon lotus to the palace? Xinyu couldn't figure out how the Ji family's sacred object fell into the hands of Prince An. According to Ji Wuwang, the moon lotus disappeared after your mother disappeared. Could it be that the person who helped my mother in the capital was Prince An? Xinyu thought about this royal highness who did not have a strong presence. According to the time, Prince An was already a vassal at that time. Prince An's fief was not far from the Ji family's land. It would make sense if his mother met Prince An after she left the clan's land. Xinyu and Shang Junlin voiced their speculations. Could it be that after my mother left the Ji clan, she met An Wang? She had a token from the royal family in her hands, and under An Wang's protection, she escaped the pursuit of those people? Otherwise, how could it explain the time when his mother disappeared after she left the clan's territory and arrived at the capital? I asked the hidden dragon guards to investigate King Anne's movements during that period of time. There was a period of time when King Anne's fief was heavily guarded. It lasted for about 2 months. After that, the security of the fief returned to normal. Coincidentally, it was the late emperor's birthday, and King Anne went to the capital in the name of celebrating the birthday. The timing was almost right. Xinyu lowered his eyes and pondered. Could his mother's matter be related to Prince Anne? Anyway, it was better to have a clue than to have no clue at all. Xinyu thought that he should ask the people of Yinghua to check it out after he went out. I will send someone to investigate Prince Anne. If it is really related to him, I will have him come to the capital. As for what happened back then, we will know when we meet him. Xinyu nodded. His body was getting better day by day. In the blink of an eye, they had already stayed in the Ji clan for more than a month. Seeing that Shun Yu's body had almost recovered, Shang Junlin set a date to leave. Will you be reluctant to leave? Shang Junlin turned to ask Shun Yu after he finished instructing the hidden dragon guards. Shin Yu was flipping through the books that he found in the Ji clan's library. What are you reluctant to leave? Shang Junlin walked over and pinched Shan Yu's face. After careful care, Shin Yu's face had gained some weight, and his complexion was much better than before. I am reluctant to leave. After all, he was Shan Yu's blood-related family. Shang Junlin was worried that Shan Yu would want to stay. After a period of time, Shin Yu seemed to have accepted Ji Wuwang as his elder brother. Ji Wuwang also told the clan about Shan Yu's true identity. Both parties got along better and better. When Ji Wuwang was not busy, he would look for Shin Yu and tell him about the clan's situation and the interesting things that happened in the Ji clan in the past. Why is your majesty still worried about this? Shin Yu turned around and faced Shang Junlin. He placed his hands on the man's shoulders. Wherever your majesty is, I will be there. No matter how good this place is, how can it be better than being by your majesty's side? Shun Yu's words comforted Shang Junlin greatly. He lowered his head and rubbed his forehead against Shan Yu's. Is there such a good person by my side? Shun Yu stared into the man's inky black eyes and arched his eyebrows. Your majesty is the master of the great Huan kingdom. You should have more confidence in yourself. In this world, who can compare to your majesty? Even if there is, your majesty will always be number one in my heart. Did you eat honey today? Why is your mouth so sweet? Shang Junlin smiled. Why don't your majesty try it and see if it is sweet? Shang Junlin's eyes deepened, and he lowered his head to kiss the young man's lips. Their breaths mingled. Shin Yu slowly closed his eyes and immersed himself in the kiss. In a daze, he heard the man's low and magnetic voice. It's very sweet. 2 days later, Shin Yu and Shang Junlin left the Ji clan. This time, Ji Wuwang didn't go with them. He only sent some people to escort them. After dealing with the clan's matters, brother will go to the capital to find you. Ji Wuwang looked at Shun Yu, who was standing opposite him. The Ji clan had been hiding from the world for hundreds of years. It was impossible for them to hide from the world forever. Now that the outside world was stable, it was time for them to go out and take a look. Ji Wuwang had been busy with this matter. Moving the clan was not a small matter. As the clan leader, he needed to stay and deal with the corresponding matters. Shin Yu knew that Ji Wuwang wanted to bring the clan back into the world. During this period, the three of them would sometimes gather together to discuss this matter. They discussed where to move the clan, the specific future development, and other issues. If there's anything, you can come and find me, Shang Junlin said. Not to mention that Ji Wuwang was Shen Yu's brother. Shang Junlin was willing to make things easier for him because Ji Wuwang helped Shun Yu remove the seal. Because of Shun Yu's health, they left in a carriage. The speed was much slower than when they came. Halfway through the journey, Shang Junlin received a secret letter from the palace. The secret letter was from Fang Jun. After reading it, Shang Junlin ordered them to change their route and go directly to the capital. What's wrong? Looking at Shang Junlin's serious face, Shin Yu asked. The fish took the bait. Shang Junlin handed the secret letter to Shin Yu. After reading it, Shin Yu understood why Shang Junlin wanted to go directly to the capital. The palace was their bait. Now that the other party had taken action, they naturally wanted to catch the biggest fish. The capital. Hasn't there been any news from the palace? In the main hall, all the officials gathered together. One of the officials couldn't help but ask. They had lost contact with the palace 3 days ago. On the first day, the officials didn't pay much attention to it. They just thought that something had gone wrong. But after 3 days, there was still no news from the palace. Many of the officials panicked. They tried to contact the people over there, but the news was like a stone sinking into the sea. There was no reply at all. Summer is already over. Why hasn't His Majesty brought His Majesty back to the capital? I heard that His Majesty is also living in seclusion in the palace. What happened? One question after another was thrown out, but no one could answer. Even the Prime Minister, who didn't like noise, didn't say anything this time. All right, everyone, calm down. Something might have gone wrong. His Majesty is in the palace. There are also soldiers and horses escorting him. Nothing will happen. Duan Darren coughed lightly and comforted them. A few of the officials looked at each other. One of them stood up and said, even if it's to avoid the summer, it should be over. There's no reason that His Majesty hasn't returned yet. What happened at the palace? Someone should give us an explanation. The problem is that we can't get in touch with the palace. I wrote a letter to Lord Feng a few days ago and haven't received a reply. I think we should send someone to the palace to find out what happened. This suggestion was unanimously approved. But which lord should go? When this question was asked, the main hall fell into a short silence. Choosing a candidate was indeed a problem. The main problem was that they didn't know the situation at the palace. If there was nothing wrong, wouldn't going there rashly offend His Majesty? Wouldn't it affect their own careers? If something really happened, would the people who went be able to solve it? This wasn't a good task. No one volunteered. Everyone was weighing the pros and cons. After a final discussion, a general was chosen to lead a small group of soldiers to the palace. The person who was assigned the task was a general who had confronted the king of Yu's army. This person was chosen by Lord Duan. The Prime Minister didn't have any objections. The two powerful officials didn't have any objections. The remaining officials didn't dare to have any objections. Before leaving, the Prime Minister walked up to Lord Duan and asked, "Why did you choose this person?" Lord Duan narrowed his eyes. "Prime Minister, do you have a better candidate in mind?" "I just hope that Lord Duan won't make the wrong choice." The Prime Minister's tone was as calm as ever. "I know what I'm doing. There's no need for Prime Minister to worry. But Prime Minister, you don't seem to have rested well. You should take care of yourself." The two parted on bad terms. After the Prime Minister left, the other officials saw this and walked over. "What's wrong with the Prime Minister? You don't even want to save face?" The Prime Minister had always been at odds with the aristocratic families. This was a well-known secret in the imperial court. In the past, the Prime Minister wouldn't show his dislike for the aristocratic families so obviously. What was going on today? Maybe he's not in a good mood? Lord Duan smiled as if he didn't take this matter to heart. The communication between the capital and the summer palace was completely cut off. The 17th prince began to frequently contact the officials from the aristocratic families. Not only the aristocratic families, but some of the officials from the poor families also secretly contacted him. Everything was not on the surface. As the days passed, there was still no news from the summer palace. People's hearts were faintly wavering. Xin Yu and Shang Junlin directly returned to the capital from the Ji clan. They avoided the summer palace and avoided everyone's eyes and ears. They were very clear about what happened in the summer palace and the capital under the Hidden Dragon Guard's reports. After leaving the Ji clan, Xin Yu contacted Ing Hua. Through them, he found out about the movements in other places in Dahuan. Currently, other than the summer palace, the capital, and a small county near the capital, there were no abnormalities in other places. Shang Junlin seemed to be at ease and was not anxious about the situation in the capital. Xin Yu knew that the man had arranged everything and was only waiting for the last moment. After the rain, Xin Yu and Shang Junlin went to a small village nearby to take shelter from the rain. Standing under the eaves and looking at the rain, Xin Yu said, "It seems that the rain will not stop for a while. Let's wait for the rain to lessen or stop before we continue our journey." Xin Yu moved to the side and rubbed against the man's arms. "Last time in the capital, we also took shelter from the rain in a farmer's house like this. Shang Junlin hugged the person in his arms tightly to prevent the cold from entering. Yes, at that time. You fell asleep directly. I had to carry you back. Come in and have a cup of hot water. Shang Junlin brought Xinyu into the house. There were already 2 cups of hot water on the table. Xinyu walked over and picked up the teacup, but did not drink it. Your Majesty, this cup. It's an imperial item. Chapter 236. The items used by the royal family all had special markings. Although the cup looked ordinary, it was made of good quality material. No matter what, such a cup should not appear here. The place where they took shelter from the rain was a village at the foot of the mountain. The people living here were almost isolated from the rest of the world. Before they settled down, the hidden dragon guards had already checked and found that there were no problems with the people here. Why would there be an item used by the royal family in such a remote village? Xinyu turned the cup and looked at the cup in his hand. In fact, he was quietly looking around. Other than the 2 cups, there was nothing wrong with the room. Auntie, where did you buy this cup? I like it very much and want to buy a set to bring it back. Xinyu retracted his gaze and asked casually, Young master, are you talking about this cup? It was not bought. It was washed down from the mountain when it rained heavily. At that time, many things fell down from the mountain. Everyone in the village brought back the things that could still be used. We thought that a wealthy family was in trouble and sent people to the mountain to search for them. However, we could not find them. Which mountain is it? The one in front. The auntie pointed to the southwest direction. There was a towering mountain there. If it was not for the sudden rain, Xinyu and the rest would not have passed by it. After drinking a cup of hot water, their bodies warmed up. Xinyu and Shang Junlin sat in the room and waited for the rain to stop. The auntie went to work, and only Xinyu and Shang Junlin were left in the room. Xinyu held the teacup and rubbed the sides of the cup. He asked, Your Majesty, do you want to take a look at that mountain? After the rain stops, we will go and take a look. The rain continued for about 4 hours. After the rain stopped, Xinyu and Shang Junlin did not set off immediately. They planned to take a look at the mountain after the rain dried up. Seeing that they were interested, the auntie instructed her youngest son to lead the way for them. If you 2 young masters want to go up the mountain, you can bring my youngest son along. He likes to go up and down the mountain since he was young. He knows the way up and down the mountain very well. The auntie called out her youngest son. He was about 12 or 13 years old. His clothes were patched and his eyes were dark and full of spirit. When he looked at them, there was an unconcealable curiosity in his eyes. She secretly looked at Xinyu several times, thinking that she had not been discovered. The young man's eyes were clean, clear, and not annoying at all, so Xinyu didn't expose him. It didn't rain that night, so the woman tidied up her youngest son's room for them to stay in. The conditions at home are simple and crude, so please don't mind. We should be thanking Annie for taking us in. Otherwise, we might still be outside in the rain. Xunyu's attitude was gentle. With just a few words, the woman let down her guard and told them a lot of news about the village. The village was located at the foot of the mountain and was surrounded by mountains on 3 sides. It was very difficult to go out. They were basically self-sufficient and planted some food at the foot of the mountain. Every once in a while, the men in the mountain would go hunting in groups to supplement the family. The cup was found by the men when they went hunting. The master of the woman's house and her eldest son took the game to the market, leaving only the woman and her youngest son at home. According to the woman, every family was like this. Most of the people who stayed were the elderly, women, and children. It was no wonder that when they first entered the village, the people they met were vigilant towards them. Xinyu guessed the reason from the woman's words. The young men in the house were not at home, so it was normal for them to be vigilant when strangers suddenly came. After chatting for a while, the woman went out. Xinyu sat on the bed and poked Shang Junlin's arm. Shang Junlin lowered his head and looked at him in confusion. What's wrong? Your Majesty, have you lived in a place like this before? Xinyu leaned his head on the man's shoulder and couldn't help but think of his previous life. There was a period of time in his previous life when he was running around for King Yu and suffered a lot. He also lived in a farmer's house. At that time, he didn't feel anything. Now that he was with Shang Junlin, even if the surrounding environment was bad, he still felt sweet. This trip back to the capital was definitely not comfortable. Shen Yu was not someone who couldn't bear hardships. This was nothing to him, but Shang Junlin always had a faint sense of guilt. The man hid it well, but Shen Yu still felt it. He could roughly understand why Shang Junlin felt guilty. Shang Junlin always wanted to give him the best of everything. This trip back to the capital was too far away. Shang Junlin held Shen Yu's hand, which was hanging by his side. When I was marching in the army, I lived in all kinds of places, but at that time, I was alone. Now that I have a you by my side, it feels different. As long as a you was by his side, no matter what the surrounding environment was, Shang Junlin felt that it didn't matter. It feels very different to stay overnight with your majesty. Shen Yu's voice was very soft, as if he was sighing. Today, I think that with your majesty, even if we can only live in a small village, it's not bad to live a life where we work at sunrise and rest at sunset. Shang Junlin held Shen Yu's hand tightly. If we really live here like everyone here, will your majesty hunt and raise me? Before Shang Junlin finished speaking, Shen Yu interrupted him. I can't carry anything with my hands or shoulders. Without your majesty, I may not even be able to eat. Shang Junlin couldn't help but think along with Shen Yu's words. If he wasn't the emperor and was just an ordinary person living in the village, he would definitely do his best to let you live a good life after getting a you. He had good strength. He could go up the mountain to hunt. He could plant crops in the fields. A you only needed to wait at home for him to come back. He couldn't bear to let a you do any heavy work. He and a you were like thousands of ordinary couples. Whatever a you wanted to do, he would do his best to satisfy her. Your Majesty, quickly say it. Shang Junlin didn't speak. Shen Yu was dissatisfied and knocked his forehead against him. Shang Junlin reached out and hugged the young man again. He lowered his head and rubbed his face. A you doesn't need to do anything. I will take good care of a you. I won't let a you suffer or be tired. Shen Yu was amused by Shang Junlin's seriousness. He leaned in the man's arms and laughed. Perhaps the two of them had discussed this topic that night. Shen Yu had a dream that night. In the dream, he and Shang Junlin had been living in the village. During the day, Shen Yu would move a small stool and sit beside him to watch a man in coarse, short clothes work in the field. The small stool he sat on was also made by the man himself. In the hot summer, the man walked towards him with a head full of sweat. He got up and took out a clean handkerchief to wipe the sweat on the man's forehead. Unexpectedly, the man hugged his waist and he fell into the man's arms. A chuckle came from the top of his head. The young man angrily pushed the man away. Before he could leave, he was caught in the man's arms again. When he woke up, he felt refreshed. Shen Yu sat up and looked around. For a moment, he couldn't tell whether it was reality or a dream. Shang Junlin pushed the door and came in. At a glance, he saw the young man sitting on the bed with a confused expression. You're awake? Without thinking, Shang Junlin quickly walked to the bed and hugged the young man intimately. Every time he woke up, Shen Yu would be in a semi-conscious state for a period of time. During this period, the young man was very different from usual. He was obedient and soft. Shang Junlin loved this moment very much. In the midst of the intimacy, Shen Yu slowly came back to his senses. He withdrew from the man's arms and said, "It seems that the sun is out." Yes, Shang Junlin took the clothes on the side and put them on Shen Yu. After breakfast, I plan to go up the mountain. Will you stay here or go up the mountain with me? This sentence perfectly coincided with what happened in the dream. Shen Yu couldn't help but laugh. What is you laughing about? Shang Junlin didn't understand. I feel that the current His Majesty is very similar to the one described last night. I'll wait at home for His Majesty to go up the mountain to hunt. Shen Yu couldn't help but laugh again. Shang Junlin tidied up Shen Yu's sleeves and said, "You're right. Will you wait for your husband at home?" "No, I'll go wherever my husband goes." Shen Yu raised his head to make it easier for Shang Junlin to tidy up his collar. Shang Junlin looked down at the young man who was unguarded against him. He tried to restrain himself, but in the end, he couldn't hold back and leaned over to kiss him. It was a domineering kiss. Shen Yu moaned twice. Seeing that he couldn't break free, he closed his eyes and enjoyed this morning service. Shang Junlin was very excited. Shen Yu was also very tempted. Unfortunately, the time and place didn't allow it. The two kissed for a while and had to separate before things got completely out of control. Shen Yu leaned on the man's chest. Both of them were breathing heavily. Not knowing what Shen Yu thought, he suddenly laughed. The low laughter was heard, and his body trembled slightly. Shang Junlin's fire, which had been suppressed with great difficulty, almost burned again. He had to grab the young man's shoulder and separate him from his body. "What is you laughing about?" The man's voice was low and hoarse. It was filled with lust and helplessness. "He's laughing at your majesty." Shen Yu's voice was filled with laughter. "Your majesty also has such a day." Shang Junlin didn't mind being teased by Shen Yu. He lowered his head slightly, leaned close to the young man's ear, and bit the jade-like earlobe. "You dare to make fun of me? When we return to the palace, I'll treat you well." At this time, in this position, it was self-evident what kind of treatment he would use. Shen Yu's body trembled. This time, it wasn't because of the laughter. He grabbed the man's sleeve. The contrast between his white fingers and the black clothes was even more obvious. He refused to be outdone and said, "I'll wait and see." The man's eyes darkened. His eyes were filled with strong emotions. He unconsciously tightened his grip on Shen Yu's shoulder. Feeling the danger, Shen Yu coughed twice and reminded the man, "Well, your majesty, we should go out." Shang Junlin closed his eyes and suppressed the various reactions of his body. The two fooled around for a while. When they left the house, half an hour had already passed. Breakfast had been prepared. The conditions were limited, so there was only a simple porridge and side dishes. The woman set the bowls and chopsticks and stood to the side a little uneasily. Shen Yu and Shang Junlin sat down together. After breakfast, the two walked outside. Then, under the guidance of the woman's son, they went up the mountain. The mountain road was rugged. It rained yesterday, so it was muddy. After walking for a while, Shang Junlin suddenly stopped. The young man looked in front and said, "The road ahead is more difficult to walk." Shen Yu looked in front of him. Indeed, the road was narrower. A few hidden dragon guards followed behind them. There were also some who were hiding in the dark. Along the way, the young man looked at the hidden dragon guards curiously. He didn't understand where these people came from. He didn't see so many people around before. Shang Junlin walked in front of Shen Yu and said, "I'll carry you up." Shen Yu thought for a while and didn't refuse. He leaned on the man's broad shoulders and felt very safe. "Are you brothers?" The young man looked at them enviously. "You have a good relationship? My brother doesn't like to carry me." "We're not brothers." Shen Yu tilted his head and said, "He's my lover. Don't you think so, Brother Lin?" Chapter 237. Shang Junlin's footsteps paused. Shen Yu could clearly feel that the man's body instantly tensed up. He leaned on the man's shoulder and chuckled. Shang Junlin lightly said, "Don't make trouble." The young man on the side opened his eyes wide and looked at the scene in front of him. "You are?" Shen Yu remembered that he shouldn't teach children bad things. The words on the tip of his tongue turned a few times, but he didn't say it. "Is your relationship the same as His Majesty's?" The young man didn't dare to keep staring at them. He lowered his head and walked forward. He was young and couldn't hide his curiosity. After walking for a while, he couldn't help but ask. Shen Yu was interested. He leaned on the man's shoulder and turned to look at the young man. "Then tell me, what is the relationship between His Majesty and His Majesty?" "It's very loving. His Majesty doesn't want anyone else for His Majesty, and he doesn't allow anyone to bully His Majesty. When I grow up, I want to be like His Majesty, only marry the person I like, protect her well, and don't let anyone bully her." The young man said seriously, "Good ambition." Shen Yu was amused. "You can definitely do it in the future." The young man's idea was affirmed, and the joy in his eyes could no longer be hidden. "I also want to be like His Majesty, a great general, protect Da Huan, and beat back all the people who bully us." "Then you will definitely become a great general in the future," Shen Yu said. The young man opened his mouth and talked a lot about His Majesty's heroic deeds. He didn't know that His Majesty was beside him, and he was silently listening to the conversation between the two. Xinyu held back his laughter. Listening to the young man talk about His Majesty in his mind, if it wasn't for the circumstances, he would like to ask what the protagonist of this conversation was thinking. The two kept talking, and unknowingly, they arrived at their destination. The young man stopped and pointed to the front. "It's there. We picked up the cup there." In the forest in front, there were some messy mounds. The mounds had obvious traces of being moved. Xinyu patted Shang Junlin's shoulder. "Alin, put me down first." In front of outsiders, Xinyu naturally would not address Shang Junlin as His Majesty. Along the way, they did not reveal their true identities. Shang Junlin put Xinyu down. The two of them approached the mound. Xinyu broke a branch from the side and poked it in the soil. "Everything that can be used has been taken back by the villagers. The rest are all broken and can't be used." The teenager saw Xinyu's movements and explained. After digging for a while, Xinyu saw some broken porcelain inside. "Is no one curious about where these things came from?" Xinyu threw the branch aside and asked. The conversation along the way made Xinyu gain a good impression in the boy's heart. The boy told him everything he knew to this young brother who recognized his ambition. "I'm curious. With so many good things, everyone is naturally curious." The village chief even specially organized people to go up the mountain to search for them. Unfortunately, they didn't find anything. They walked around the vicinity but found nothing. However, it was not normal for these imperial items to appear here. Hence, some of the hidden dragon guards were left to continue searching. Xinyu and Shang Junlin were led down the mountain by the teenager. The round trip took a few hours. When they reached the foot of the mountain, the road was almost dry. At this time, Xinyu and Shang Junlin should be on their way back to the capital. However, the two of them were more concerned about the imperial items that suddenly appeared. Hence, they did not leave immediately. After going up the mountain, their clothes were dirty. The two of them changed their clothes and sat down in the house. Does this batch of imperial items have anything to do with what Grand Tutor Zhang mentioned before? Xinyu thought about it and felt that the imperial items shouldn't have suddenly appeared here. This village was very normal. The answers given by the hidden dragon guards would not be wrong. After the imperial items were filed, they would be properly stored. Even if they were given out as rewards, they would be recorded. After Shang Junlin ascended the throne, there was a special official in charge of this area. During the drought in the north, the Ministry of Revenue reorganized the items in the national treasury. If there were any missing items, they should have known. Since there were no missing items, it meant that there was nothing wrong with the items in the national treasury. This batch of items could only have been leaked out before Shang Junlin ascended the throne. The imperial court has already found the whereabouts of the imperial items that Grand Tutor Zhang mentioned. According to him, there should be another batch of items that are wandering outside. Regardless of whether we met them here or not, we have to find out what is going on. In order not to alarm others, Shang Junlin did not inform the local government. He left the investigation to the hidden dragon guards. 2 days later, the hidden dragon guards reported that they had found the whereabouts of the imperial items. It was a cave hidden in the middle of the mountain. Perhaps it was because of the heavy rain all year round. The cave was damaged to a certain extent. Part of the cave that was hidden in the cave flowed out along with the soil and was coincidentally discovered by the villagers. Xinyu and Shang Junlin stood in the cave and were momentarily speechless. In front of them were boxes of different sizes. Some of the boxes had already been opened by the hidden dragon guards, revealing the items inside. What came into view were boxes of jewelry. Most of them were gold and silver. The Prime Minister also went. If the people could feel it, the officials could feel it even more clearly. As the days passed, there was still no news from the temporary residents. Many people could not sit still. What is going on with His Majesty? Is there any news? The more attentive officials found that some unknown changes had occurred. They did not know what exactly had happened, so they could only observe carefully. The Prime Minister's presence had unknowingly begun to decrease. On the contrary, Lord Duan's presence had become stronger and stronger. The balance between the aristocratic officials and the humble officials that Shang Junlin had maintained in the imperial court was faintly being broken. A few officials who had a good relationship with the prime minister came to the prime minister's residence to discuss countermeasures. Does Lord Duan also not know what has happened? What are these aristocratic officials led by Lord Duan trying to do? The elementary school that was in the process of being established was stopped. At the same time, other policies that were being implemented were also affected. The humble officials were caught off guard by the sudden attack of the aristocratic officials and gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. Are they not afraid that His Majesty will punish them when he returns to the capital? Or, he didn't finish his sentence, but everyone present knew what he was trying to say. The aristocratic officials were so fearless. Did they know some inside information that they did not know? What was His Majesty's state now? What happened in the imperial palace? One question after another hovered in their minds. They could not figure out why there was a problem this time. If we had known this would happen, we would not have agreed to His Majesty's request to bring so few people to the imperial palace. Even if we did not agree, what can we do? How many times has His Majesty changed his decision? This sentence was the truth. The officials knew that until now, the only person who had the ability to persuade Shang Junlin to change his decision was probably Shunyu. I don't know how His Majesty's situation is. Is there any movement in Count North's residence? No. Speaking of which, isn't Count North too quiet during this period of time? Before, he was still interacting with many officials and wanted to return to the imperial court. Now it seems that there is no movement. Count North's illegitimate son was convicted because he wanted to hurt His Majesty. I don't know how His Majesty plans to deal with Count North. Count North was also very nervous about his own ending. He could see how much the Emperor valued his legitimate son. He also knew that this time, Xinxingran wanted to hurt Xinyu, and it would not be over so easily. How many people could bear the Emperor's anger? As long as the knife hanging over his head did not fall, Count North would not be at ease. In Count North's residence, Count North sat on the main seat in the study. Several people sitting below him were his confidants. One of them said, "Count North, you have to make a decision early." "That's my only son." Duke Shunbei hesitated. If eldest young master and Count North were of the same mind, Count North would naturally not need to consider this. But eldest young master is obviously not. Count North should think more for yourself. This time, no one knows if the matter of second young master will implicate Count North. His confidant advised, "Count North, it is clear at a glance which is more important, the merit of supporting the Emperor and a legitimate son who is not on your side." Chapter 238. Sir Jinbei relaxed. He knew what his confidant said was reasonable, but at the same time, it was too risky to do so. A few days ago, a man who claimed to have the imperial edict of the late emperor came to Sir Jinbei's residence and said that Shang Junlin had used dishonorable means to ascend the throne. After so many years of planning, it was finally time to restore the throne. As a hereditary marquis, Sir Jinbei hoped that Sir Jinbei could make the right choice. Sir Jinbei didn't agree immediately and only said that he needed to think about it. After that man left, he called his confidant for a meeting. Until today, he still hadn't made a decision. Shang Junlin had ascended the throne for so many years and had a solid foundation. It was too risky to make a move at this time. Moreover, his son was the only one in Shang Junlin's harem. If there were no accidents, he would be the only one who could stand beside the emperor. He didn't need to take such a big risk to do something that had an uncertain future. I still think that it's not reliable. If that man comes again in the future, just say that I'm sick and don't bring him to see me. Sir Jinbei thought for a long time and made a decision. Sir. His confidant didn't expect that Sir Jinbei was still unmoved. He couldn't help but feel anxious. Sir, why don't you think about it more? You're trying to make me rebel. That's why I want to ask you, what's your intention? Duke Jinbei slammed the table with an ugly look on his face. I just think that you shouldn't be wasted like this. The current emperor doesn't want to put you in an important position. Naturally, There will be a wise emperor who can put you in an important position. The man who spoke didn't expect Sir Jinbei to have such a reaction. His back was covered with cold sweat, and his voice was getting lower and lower. I don't need you to interfere in my affairs. There were people from Yinghua and Sir Jinbei's residence. Since someone contacted Sir Jinbei's residence, the news was passed to Shen Yu by Yinghua. Shen Yu knew everything that happened in Sir Jinbei's residence. This time, he made the right decision. Shen Yu closed the secret letter and sighed. The hidden dragon guards reported everything that happened in the capital. The hidden dragon guards hid in the dark. They were Shang Junlin's eyes and ears. Whatever they knew, Shang Junlin would know in less than a day. Those people thought that they were doing it secretly, but they didn't know that their every move was being monitored by the hidden dragon guards. After ascending the throne for so many years, Shang Junlin's control over the Great Huan dynasty was far beyond these people's imagination. The hidden dragon guards knew what was happening in Sir Jinbei's residence. After Shang Junlin received the news from the hidden dragon guards, he told Shen Yu, "If the Northern Marquis really did those things, I don't know how to deal with him." Shang Junlin heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that Sir Jinbei had rejected those people. Sir Jinbei was Shen Yu's biological father. If he did something unforgivable, as the son of Sir Jinbei, Shen Yu would be implicated. This was something that Shang Junlin didn't want to see. "Your Majesty, you can do whatever you want to do. You don't have to worry about me." Shen Yu could tell what Shang Junlin was worried about. "Even if Yu doesn't care, I won't let the world think that a Yu has a bad reputation. Even if this bad reputation was because of Sir Jinbei. Your Majesty, how do you plan to deal with him?" Shen Yu's voice was very calm. It was as if they were talking about an irrelevant subject and not his biological father. "I can't just let go of what he did to you. However, I can't let him affect you. You, don't worry. I will take care of it. Or rather, does you have any thoughts?" Shang Junlin caressed Shen Yu's face and rubbed his fingers. "Your Majesty, you can decide." Shen Yu rubbed Shang Junlin's hand back. In his previous life, he didn't have any scruples. Under his manipulation, Sir Jinbei lost everything. The power and wealth he wanted were all gone. The more he cared about something, the more Shen Yu wouldn't let him get it. In this life, he didn't plan to use the same method to deal with Sir Jinbei. Since Shang Junlin asked, it meant that he had made a decision. Shen Yu could rest assured and leave this matter to him. "With your Majesty, I don't have to worry about anything," Shen Yu murmured. "Your Majesty will arrange everything, right?" "Yes. If you doesn't want to take care of it, you can leave it to me." Shang Junlin lowered his head and kissed Shen Yu's neck. He didn't want unimportant people to occupy Shen Yu's attention. He didn't care about love or hate. As long as Shen Yu had him in her heart, it was enough. It was best if all her attention was on him. This was a thought that Shang Junlin wouldn't say out loud. "What's the situation in the capital?" After being intimate with Shang Junlin for a while, Shen Yu asked about serious matters. Some of the ministers have sided with the other side. Some of them did it willingly. Some of them had something on the other side. So they had no choice but to take sides. Shang Junyi has now arrived in the capital and met with many of the ministers in private. When the news from the Summer Palace arrives, they will probably take action. Shang Junlin's tone became cold when he mentioned this. Shang Junyi was the 70th prince. When Shang Junlin ascended the throne, Shang Junyi wasn't even 10 years old. His birth mother was a beauty from the common people. She was only favored by the late emperor for a short period of time. Without the support of a strong maternal family, this pair of mother and son didn't have a strong sense of existence. The fief was also a small and inconspicuous place. These princes' fiefs were all sealed by the late emperor in advance because he was afraid that Shang Junlin would kill them all. For a prince like Shang Junyi, who wasn't favored, the late emperor just casually gave him a piece of land. The 17th prince's fief? Shen Yu recalled the information he read a while ago. It seems to be very close to Prince An's fief. It'll take about half a day on horseback. Shang Junlin gave an affirmative answer. Is it true that the 17th prince has the imperial edict left behind by the late emperor? Shen Yu changed the topic and asked another question. The imperial edict was one of the main reasons why the aristocratic families and ministers changed sides. However, The imperial edict was kept secret, and no one had seen it with their own eyes. I've asked the hidden dragon guards to search for it secretly, but they couldn't find the imperial edict. Shang Junlin frowned. When he received the news, he had asked the hidden dragon guards to search for it. After a few days, the hidden dragon guards didn't send back any news. It was as if the news was fabricated out of thin air. It can't be fake news. Without seeing the real thing, those ministers shouldn't have believed it so easily. Shunyu said, those who could become officials in the imperial court and survive the purges were not stupid. No matter how real the lie was, it couldn't fool everyone. When the emperor ascended the throne, did anything strange happen? Shunyu believed that the late emperor would leave such a backup plan to guard against Shang Junlin. After all, the late emperor could even leave behind the national treasury and the army. It wasn't strange for him to have another imperial edict. At that time, Shang Junlin recalled the year when he ascended the throne. When he brought the army back to the capital, he didn't receive the rewards that he deserved. Instead, he received the news that the late emperor and his favored ministers were plotting to seize his military power. Shang Junlin didn't want to sit still and wait for his death. He took the initiative to take control of the capital. He entered the palace with a murderous aura. Under the support of his ministers, Shang Junlin reluctantly received the imperial edict from the late emperor. The late emperor was seriously ill and couldn't get out of bed. He was only awake for a limited time every day. He wanted to seize my military power and return me to the time when I was at the mercy of others. However, he didn't know that because of his muddle-headedness, the ministers couldn't stand him anymore. His favored ministers committed all kinds of crimes and angered the public. They were executed by me. No one was on his side. No matter how unwilling he was, he could only issue an imperial edict to succeed me. Not to mention that Shang Junlin was the only legitimate son of the late emperor and should have the position of crown prince. Should I say that the 17th prince is too arrogant, or should I say that he is too stupid? He thinks that he can compete with his majesty. Isn't he overestimating himself? Am I that powerful in a Yu's eyes? Shang Junlin took the secret letter from Shun Yu's hand and put it aside. He walked over to Xinyu and sat down beside her. Xinyu moved to the side and made room for Shang Junlin. He smiled and said, "Of course your majesty is powerful. If you are not powerful, how can I stay by your side willingly?" "Oh?" Shang Junlin pinched Shun Yu's chin and said, "A Yu? Tell me, how am I powerful?" "Of course, I am powerful in every way. Does that include in bed?" Xinyu was caught off guard by the man's straightforwardness. Chapter 239. Shang Junlin stared at Xinyu. Under his gaze, the young man's snow-like skin gradually turned crimson. "Why isn't you speaking?" Shang Junlin's lips curled up slightly as he leaned close to the young man's ear. His voice was low and elegant, making it hard for people to imagine that he was asking such a frivolous question. "Your Majesty, why?" Xinyu's voice paused as he felt his earlobe being bitten. Shang Junlin let go of his earlobe that had been bullied and let out a low chuckle. His hot breath sprayed on the sensitive earlobe, and the crimson color on the white snow became even more intense. "Why isn't you answering my question?" Shang Junlin picked up Shan Yu's hair that had fallen by her ear and twirled it around his finger. "Wasn't you the one who said it in the beginning? Her hair was soft and fragrant. I was the one who said it. Your Majesty is amazing in every aspect, including in bed." Shun Yu tilted his head, and his soft lips rubbed against Shang Junlin's finger. His eyes sparkled as he slowly uttered the last two words, "amazing." Shun Yu suddenly felt a slight pain, but he didn't care about the pain. Instead, he raised his hand and stroked the man's face. Shin Yu's body temperature had always been low. Even if he removed the ban in his body, this physique didn't change. His slightly cold fingers didn't cool down the man's body. Instead, it was like a spark falling into dry wood, igniting a raging fire. Feeling the man's heavy breathing, Shun Yu smiled. "Your Majesty, didn't you want to hear my answer?" "I'll answer." Oh, without waiting for him to finish, Shang Junlin had already lowered his head and blocked the young man's opening and closing lips. Shen Yu didn't resist. He put his hands around the man's neck and pulled him towards himself. He had never resisted Shang Junlin's kiss, or rather, he was addicted to this kind of intimacy. Under the candlelight, his vision was blurred, and the light and shadow were scattered. The man picked up the black hair that fell by his neck, put it to his lips, and kissed it lovingly. You, tell me, am I powerful? Shen Yu clutched the cloth under his hand tightly. His breath was hot, and he could only nod. After the wind and rain stopped, Shen Yu lay in Shang Junlin's arms. Her whole body was soft, and she was too lazy to move. It could only be said that people's ability to adapt was extremely strong. Compared to the beginning, Shen Yu's discomfort was much lower now. After closing his eyes for a while, Shen Yu said, "Your Majesty, please give me a massage." Shang Junlin was very familiar with massaging Shen Yu. He reached out and massaged Shen Yu with moderate strength. "Do you feel any discomfort?" Shang Junlin asked in a low voice. Shen Yu shook his head. Actually, he didn't feel too bad. He just wanted to order Shang Junlin around. The two stopped talking, and the atmosphere around them was warm. The attendant was ordered to bring warm water. Shang Junlin got up, poured a cup of hot water, and came back with it. He pulled Shen Yu into his arms again. "Drink some water to moisten your throat." Shen Yu lowered his head and drank the water in Shang Junlin's hand. "How is General Gu? Why did you mention another man at this time?" Shang Junlin put the cup on the small table, and his tone was a little dissatisfied. He wasn't dissatisfied with Shen Yu, but with General Gu, who took Shen Yu's attention at this time. "I was talking business with your Majesty." "Who asked your Majesty to?" Shen Yu didn't finish the rest of his words, but both of them knew what he was going to say. "It's my fault." The man who was satisfied was easy to talk to. "You is so attractive. I never have any self-control in front of you." "Is your Majesty blaming me?" Shen Yu looked at the man from the corner of his eyes, and the corners of his eyes slightly drooped. "How can I bear to blame you? If it's my fault, it's my lack of self-control." "Good you, don't be angry with me." Shang Junlin intimately rubbed the cheek of the person in his arms, and his tone was full of love. Shen Yu naturally wouldn't be angry because of such a small matter. The more attractive he was to Shang Junlin, the deeper Shang Junlin loved him. Shen Yu liked the feeling of being needed. "I won't be angry with your Majesty." Shen Yu kissed Shang Junlin's face. "Your Majesty, let's talk business." Shang Junlin and Shen Yu talked business. Gu Huai incorporated the army of the Lin family and killed the people who were hiding in the mountains to take advantage of the situation. They are now on their way to the capital. "Shen Yu, such a big movement. Has the person behind the scenes received the news?" "Shang Junlin, the news hasn't arrived yet." Gu Huai acted very quickly and caught the other party off guard, not giving the other party a chance to report. Previously, Gu Huai acted to let those people think that the plan was developing according to their expectations. Now that the person's attention is on the capital, they won't spend too much energy on Gu Huai. When those people react, everything will have been settled, and it will be impossible to change anything. "Shen Yu, the imperial court has sent people to the temporary imperial residence. How is the situation there?" "Shang Junlin, Feng Jun can handle it. I've sent people to support, so there won't be any problems." The situation in the temporary imperial residence wasn't as bad as the ministers thought. In order to get rid of Shang Junlin, the person behind the scenes sent elite men of sacrifice to assassinate him. In addition, a large number of soldiers were sent to surround the temporary imperial residence, not allowing anyone to enter or leave. There were even many people from the other party in the temporary imperial residence. It had to be said that the person behind the scenes was well prepared. If Shang Junlin hadn't planned this from the beginning, Shang Junlin would have suffered heavy losses. However, Shang Junlin was already prepared. It seemed that he didn't bring many people to the temporary imperial residence, but in fact, he arranged for soldiers and horses to be on standby in the dark. At the beginning, they wouldn't make any movements, giving the other party the illusion that the plan was going smoothly. When Shang Junlin gave the order, they would be like ghosts on the battlefield, mercilessly reaping the lives of the enemies. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. The winner who thought that he was the oriole didn't know that he had already fallen into the hunter's trap. Count North dealt with the confidant who instigated him. After Shun Yu told someone to leak the news to Count North that the confidant had another master, Count North. After knowing the betrayal of his confidant, Count North was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. At the same time, he also felt that under the seemingly calm surface of the capital, a shocking storm was brewing. He couldn't help but think that he had been bewitched by his confidant. What about the other ministers? Were there people lurking around them to lure them into the abyss? Now in the capital, how many people were bewitched? What about His Majesty? Did he know that someone wanted to make a move in the capital? At such a critical moment, what should he do? No one could give him a definite and feasible answer. As time passed, the uneasiness in the imperial court grew. After the general sent to the temporary imperial residence entered the southern border, he suddenly lost contact with the imperial court. This time, the ministers who were hoping for a fluke also knew that something was going to happen. On a drizzling morning, the ministers who had a say in the imperial court all received an invitation letter. The invitation letter was from one of the cabinet ministers, Lord Duan, inviting them to have a chat, saying that there was something important to discuss. At the same time, an inconspicuous gray pigeon flew out of the city. The officials tidied themselves up and went to the place mentioned in the letter. On the way, they met familiar officials and couldn't help but talk to them. Lord Duan suddenly summoned us. Is there news about His Majesty? I'm not sure. Let's go and see. It's been so many days, but there's still no news from His Majesty. It's impossible not to worry. After arriving, the officials found that there were a lot of people. The sharp-minded ones faintly felt that some of the officials were different from others. I don't know why Lord Duan invited us here. Seeing Lord Duan come in, the Prime Minister took the lead to speak. Prime Minister, don't worry. After speaking, Lord Duan faced the officials and said in a deep voice, Today, I invited everyone here for the national affairs. The country can't be without a ruler. Now there's no news about His Majesty. We can't just sit and wait. What do you mean, Lord Duan? The Prime Minister's face darkened. His Majesty has no children. If there's an accident, will everyone continue to be like this? As soon as he finished speaking, there was a burst of hushed discussion in the hall. Lord Duan is so bold. His Majesty's whereabouts are unknown, but no one can be sure that something has happened to His Majesty. Is Lord Duan so impatient to do something? It's not that I want to do anything, but it's just a precaution. Otherwise, it's impossible for such a big country to be without a ruler. Don't you think so, Prime Minister? How could the officials not know what Lord Duan was planning by inviting them here? They just couldn't believe it. How could Lord Duan be so bold? Was all of this premeditated? Was the loss of contact between the imperial palace and the imperial court deliberately caused by someone? Is Lord Duan planning to rebel? Another official beside the Prime Minister asked. These words could be said to be quite impolite. As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere in the hall was stifling. The hearts of the officials were almost in their throats. They didn't expect someone to say it out loud while they were still guessing. You can't say such things casually. Lord Duan's expression didn't change. I'm just asking for everyone's opinion. What if we don't agree? One of the officials asked with a stiff neck. Lord Zhou's youngest son seems to have just started learning to speak. He's white and chubby, very cute. He's so young. If something happens to him, it'll be a pity. Don't you think so, Lord Zhou? Some of the officials stood behind Lord Duan, and the one who spoke was one of them. Lord Zhou's expression was very ugly. Hearing this, how could the officials not understand that this was a Hongmin banquet? Many officials tried to leave, but they didn't expect that before they could walk out of the main door, the imperial guards who had appeared out of nowhere forced them back. Ministers, there is no harm in thinking about it. Even if it's not for yourself, you have to think about it for your family. We are all colleagues, and no one wants to go too far. That person looked at his colleagues who were in a difficult situation and smiled. What do you want to do? Lord Zhou gritted his teeth. Why can you order the Imperial Guards around? I just want you all to think about what to do. The Prime Minister reached out to stop Lord Zhou, who wanted to say something. Like you said, His Majesty doesn't have an heir. Who do you want to temporarily govern the country? His Majesty doesn't have an heir, but he has a brother who is also the son of the previous emperor. The 17th prince can take on this responsibility. Lord Duan said lightly. And the 17th prince has the imperial edict left by the previous emperor. How is that possible? Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.bq50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading Website, mbq50. CC. Chapter 240. What do you mean by the Imperial Edict? The Prime Minister asked. Do you think it's true just because you say so? If you don't show it to us, how can we believe you? Another official standing behind the Prime Minister said. Lord Duan said calmly, when the time is right, you will naturally see the Imperial Edict. What do you think of my suggestion? Even if we agree, His Highness isn't in the capital. Instead of wasting time going back and forth, it's better to search for His Majesty. It's not that we don't want to, but His Highness can't be compared to His Majesty in any way. In the side hall, Shang Junyi, who was being talked about, silently clenched his fists that were hidden in his sleeves. He knew that he couldn't compare to Shang Junlin, but being belittled so openly still made him feel suffocated in his chest, neither up nor down. Your Highness? The eunuch next to him whispered. It's nothing. Shang Junyi suppressed his complicated emotions and tried his best to calm down. So what if Shang Junlin was powerful? The final victory would still be his. The quarrel in the main hall continued, and the fists in Shang Junyi's sleeves clenched tighter and tighter. He had never thought of this position, but someone had placed the opportunity in front of him. Almost no one could resist such a great temptation. Just like those people said, they were both children of the previous emperor. Why could Shang Junlin do it, but not him? Shang Junyi straightened his clothes and walked into the main hall under the protection of the guards. As expected, he saw the shock on the official's face. This is a premeditated. Before the official could finish, the guards who came in with Shang Junyi suddenly blocked his mouth and pulled him out. The sharp weapons were pointed at the officials led by the Prime Minister. The meaning was clear. If you don't listen, don't blame the weapons for being blind. The main hall instantly fell silent. Even though they had already predicted this, when it really came to this moment, the officials still felt very conflicted. Other than their own safety, they were more worried about the safety of their families. If the other party could use his son to threaten Lord Zhou, then what about their families? Under the threat of force, they didn't dare to do anything. Don't worry, my lords. As long as you do as we say, you and your families will be fine. Shang Junyi stood in front of Lord Duan and comforted him. It would have been better if he hadn't spoken. Once he did, the minister's anger, which they had nowhere to vent, was directed at him. In your dreams. The officials present were clearly divided into two factions. One faction was led by Lord Duan, who followed behind Shang Junyi. The other faction was led by the Prime Minister, who was surrounded in the middle by the guards. The latter was the majority, and they were all important officials of Shang Junlin. Master Duan, what should we do now? Shang Junyi asked when they arrived at the side hall. We can't let this drag on for too long. If the people outside realize that something is wrong, the situation will be very unfavorable for us, Master Duan said. Shang Junyi was perplexed. But isn't the Imperial Army under our command? Other than the Imperial Army, there are other garrisons in the capital. Besides, the Imperial Army doesn't only listen to our orders. There was one more thing that Lord Duan didn't mention. Even though the Imperial Army seemed to be under their command, It was actually under someone else's command. Lord Duan had tried asking Shang Junyi about the identity of the mastermind behind the Imperial Army, but even Shang Junyi himself didn't know. After a few fruitless attempts, he could only put the matter aside for the time being. At the moment, only a portion of the Imperial Army was under their command. The other portion was being held back, and it wouldn't pose a hindrance to their plans for the time being. However, that didn't mean that it wouldn't be for the time being. They had to end the battle quickly so that those people wouldn't be able to do anything once the dust settled. How many families do we have in our hands now? Shang Junyi knew this as well. He didn't expect to be able to make these officials listen to him with just a little threat. They had made preparations for both sides. These people might be able to disregard their own lives for the sake of the greater good, but what about their wives and children? How could they not care at all? Not many. Other than Lord Zhou's family, there are less than 10 families under our control. It wasn't easy to control the families of these officials. They had too few people at their disposal. If not for the lack of news from Shang Junlin and the instability of the people in the capital, they wouldn't have been able to do much. Both sides were in a stalemate for the time being. The officials were confined to the main hall and guarded by armed guards. They couldn't do anything because they were worried about their wives and children. After dealing with Shang Junyi, Lord Duan went to the study. There was already someone waiting for him. It was the man who had come to his residence to seek cooperation. Lord Duan walked in and asked, "The plan has been going on for so long. Is your master still unwilling to show himself?" Yes, from the beginning until now, he had only been communicating with this man. The real mastermind had never shown himself. "You have seen my sincerity. Isn't it time for you to show some sincerity? I don't want my collaborator to be a coward who doesn't even want to show his face." "Lord Duan, why are you in such a hurry? Isn't this prince here?" A voice came from behind him. Master Duan's body tensed up instinctively. He turned around and saw a masked face. The man slowly took off his mask. "It's you?" Lord Duan's eyes widened. The person who had appeared before him was completely out of his expectations. "You seem surprised to see me, Lord Duan." The man placed the mask on the table. "I just don't understand why your Royal Highness would go through so much trouble to push a young boy to the throne." Lord Duan calmly suppressed his shock. "Your Royal Highness, King, and everyone wants to sit on that throne, but not me. I can feel your sincerity. Once this is done, I will fulfill my promise to you." To be honest, Kingen was also in disbelief at Lord Duan's actions. He didn't expect him to be able to capture all the influential officials in the imperial court. Things were progressing more smoothly than he had expected. "Everyone is here. What does your Royal Highness plan to do next?" "There's no hurry." Kingen clapped his hands. A servant in black carried a wooden box in. The box was placed in front of Lord Duan. "This is?" "Lord Duan, why don't you open it and take a look?" Kingen looked at him calmly. Lord Duan took 2 steps forward and slowly opened the wooden box under King An's watchful gaze. His movements suddenly stopped. He stared at the thing in the box. He couldn't find his voice for a long time. An imperial edict was quietly placed in the wooden box. Lord Duan took out the imperial edict with mixed feelings. He couldn't help but ask, "Is this real?" I believe that Lord Duan has the ability to distinguish between real and fake. Lord Duan didn't even realize that at this moment, his hands were trembling. They had always doubted the authenticity of this imperial edict. They never thought that it would fall into his hands. He had been an official for many years. Now that he was a cabinet minister, he could naturally distinguish whether an imperial edict was real or fake. Because of this, he found it even more inconceivable. This imperial edict was real. There was no doubt about this. But how could it be? Why would Kingen have such an imperial edict? What was even more inconceivable was that this was an imperial edict for ascension. With it in your hands, I don't need to say more. Lord Duan should know what to do, right? Seeing Lord Duan's dazed expression, Kingen reminded him. In the hall, the ministers gathered together. Several hours had passed, but nothing happened. Shang Junlin received a secret letter from the capital. He said to Shun Yu, who was standing beside him, "It has begun. The place where they were staying now was very close to the capital. They could enter the city in less than 2 hours. The Imperial Guards who were trapped by the trap had already contacted them. The leader of the Imperial Guards brought the recent movements in the capital. When he was transferred out of the capital for no reason, he faintly felt that something was wrong. Now that he saw with his own eyes that Shang Junlin and Shen Yu were safe, he was relieved. Lady Zhou fainted on the way to burn incense. When she woke up, she found that she was in a completely unfamiliar place. She was locked up with several other ministers' wives. Her first reaction was to find her child. This time, she burned incense to pray for her youngest son, so she brought her child along. Fortunately, the child was by her side. She could reach out and grab him. She hugged the child in her arms. Her high-hanging heart finally relaxed a little. Seeing that she had woken up, one of the wives put a finger to her lips and made a gesture to keep quiet. Lady Zhou was not a foolish woman. When she saw this, she lowered her voice and asked, "What's going on?" One after another, the others woke up. After a brief conversation, they found that everyone had suddenly fainted and was brought here. "I'm afraid that they want to use us to threaten our families." Almost instantly, they figured out the cause and effect. "There are so many of us. The person who caught us must have a big plan." The others nodded. They checked themselves and found that they were not injured or tied up. They walked around the room and found that the doors and windows were tightly shut. There were many people guarding outside. The people in the room were all women. Except for Lady Zhou, there was a 1-year-old child beside her. The child was still in a coma. The wife who knew a little about medicine checked the child. It was just that the child had fallen asleep because of the medicine. "We can't let the adults be threatened because of us." Lady Zhou held the child and said in a deep voice. The other women agreed. "We have to think of a way to escape." They were just weak women. It was very difficult to escape from a heavily guarded place. How to get out of this room became their top priority. Unfortunately, no matter if they threatened or gave in, the people outside were unmoved. Only when they made the most noise they threatened. "If you want to get out in one piece, stay here quietly." After a while, the sky was dark. There were no candles in the room, so it was dark. The night was the easiest to breed fear. The wives huddled together and comforted each other. Every quarter of an hour became extremely unbearable. After some time, a few drunk men barged in. The moonlight shone in through the open door, bringing with it despair. "What do you want to do?" "What do we want to do?" The man laughed. "There are so many beauties here. After these 2 days, we don't even know if we can survive. Why don't we let our brothers have some fun first?" After saying that, they pounced on them. The women who had been hungry for a day were no match for these people. Seeing that they could not resist, one of them pulled out a hairpin and stabbed forward. Even if they died, they would drag these people down with them. In a moment of carelessness, the man who pounced on them was stabbed in the neck. The stinging pain made the man sober up for a moment, followed by rising anger. Slap! The hairpin was knocked away. The man held the woman's hand tightly. "Don't be so shameless. Go away." Madame Zhou held the child and kept shrinking back. The man stepped forward. "If you don't listen, throw the child away. If you listen, our brothers might be happy and let you go after this matter is over." Of course, these words were used to deceive these women. They all knew what would happen to these women after this matter was over. If not, they would not dare to use their drunken guts to do something bad. These people were temporarily recruited. Usually, they liked to bully the weak by relying on their strength. They were sent to watch over these women. Once the matter was settled, they would directly kill them. Not only these women, but the women's husbands would also be the first to be dealt with. Madame Zhou's eyes were filled with despair. She closed her eyes and thought, "Even if I die, I will make you pay." She had already made up her mind. Even if she could not change anything, even if she had to pay a heavy price, she would not let this man have an easy time. The men were very strong. After drinking, they let go of the last shackle in their hearts. They were not good people. Usually, they would not even see these beautiful women. Now that so many of them came back, they were destined to be killed. If they did not do something, they would feel sorry for themselves. The man smiled maliciously and approached. The smell of alcohol mixed with the body odor made people want to vomit. She clenched her fists tightly and dug her nails into her palms. She could not feel any pain. At the critical moment, a cold arrow came from outside the door and went straight into the man's back. Madame Zhou was stunned for a moment. She loosened her clenched fists and slowly felt the pain. The man groaned and fell straight down. Madame Zhou pushed the man aside and looked outside the door. The others also felt that something was wrong. They stopped what they were doing and turned around. They said fiercely, "Who dares to ruin our business?" A young man in white stood outside the door and pulled the bowstring. A group of trash who only know how to bully women. Living in this world is a waste of food. 3 arrows were shot at the same time. 3 people fell down with a groan. The other women who were frightened also noticed the people outside the door. They looked over. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.bq50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading Website, MBQ50. CC. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.